That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. Tell me when you're ready, Morgan.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody out. Thank you for joining us. We got a lot of things going on tonight and a lot of information to share with you. So with that, I just want to recognize that we do have Councilmember Burrell, Councilmember Paul, Councilmember Saxton, Councilmember Yeoman, and we don't have Councilmember Tafoya tonight, so we'll see if he shows up a few minutes later. Okay, with that, we've asked Councilmember Yeoman if she will go ahead and lead us in a moment of silence and turn some time over to these young men in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Yeoman.
Perfect. Okay, will you please join me for a moment of silence? Thank you. We have invited Troop 342 to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So we will go ahead and turn them over to our caller. You want to go up? Brock.
Color guard attention. Audience, please rise. Please make the proper hand salute. Color guard forward march. Color guard post the colors. Please repeat the pledge with me. Color guard dismissed. Audience may be seated.
Thank you so much. We love when we have the Scouts here to be able to participate in our flag ceremony. I think it just brings an added reverence to our meeting when we do the proper, Pledge of Allegiance. So thank you. Thank you, boys. You did great.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have some consent items we'd like to go through, Council. First one would be is the approval of October 1st and the approval of October 15th Roy City Council meeting minutes. Any comments on those meetings?
Make a motion, we approve, Mayor.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we do have a presentation. Let me just indicate too, we're going to make just a minor adjustment to the agenda tonight. What I'd like to do is I'd like to basically address all the city issues first, work through those, then we'll do a recess, drop into the RDA board. We have some things we need to do in the RDA board, and then we'll come out of the RDA board back to the city council, and then in the city council, we have a couple of ordinances we need to consider, and then we'll adjourn. And so I try to like to get through all of the city council issues tonight, and then move to the RDA board issues. So with that, we do have a presentation in terms of our fiscal year 2019 audit report. And so we're going to have you help us with that. Thank you. We need your name and address, please.
My name is Altina Stott with Wiggins and Company. My office is 5327 South Adams Avenue in Ogden, Utah. Honorable Mayor and City Councils, I am presenting to you the audited financial statements as of June 30th, 2019. You have a copy in front of you, but just some highlights of the audit on page 14 and 15. This is what we call our clean opinion, unmodified opinion. We believe that as of June 30th, 2019, the financial statements are fairly presented and with no material misstatements. The other thing I'd like to present to you is the financial statements themselves. The overall financial picture of the city is very, very, very positive. One thing we look at is the assets that you have available to pay your debts. You have 93 million in total assets. You have total debts of about 30 million, more than sufficient assets to pay your debts. So the city is in a very sound financial position. The general fund balance was increased this year by about $1 million, which is what you used to run the city on, so we're very happy with that. You have also in here opinions on your internal control and on your compliance. We look at your internal controls to make sure that you have a low risk of any misstatements or errors. We found with your internal controls that they're very sound, very efficiently used. So we had no findings on your internal controls this year. And then we also found that your compliance with your state compliance, you have rules that you have to follow through the state. You are in compliance with all of the state requirements. Other than that, the city is doing very well, and so we're pretty happy with this audit. So we present this to you as your final audited report.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're
Council,
welcome.
any comments, questions?
I appreciate the work of staff for
Thank you.
keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your
Thank
service.
you.
We appreciate
You
that.
bet.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Camille, Matt, well done. Okay, great report. Perfect. Okay, council, we have some action items we need to walk through. I'd like to begin one with Resolution 19-29 honoring the Mighty Mites, okay? For their 2019 session, we've asked Department Head Travis, I think you're going to talk to us.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, hey, why don't we bring up all the kids and the coaches right now?
Go
You guys
ahead and
burned it.
come right up here in front of us. Come stand right up here. Then parents can get a good picture of you. And do we want in the pictures?
I couldn't be more pleased to stand up here today in front of the mayor and city council with these fine young men. These 18 young men, along with 6 coaches, accomplished the ultimate team goal this year in the WFFL. For 13 weeks, several hours a week, they practice, work hard, went 11-0, were tremendous representatives to this city. We're grateful for all of their accomplishments. I know the mayor's got something he's going to read, so I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but every week they brought such pride to this community with not only their success on the field, but how they handled it. You know, they were gentlemen, they were sportsmen. They were tremendously, obviously very athletic, and I'll turn the time over to you, and then I'll finish with a few thoughts.
Okay. If you don't mind, we're going to pass, we hope, a resolution tonight, but I'd like to read that resolution in terms of defining exactly how important this was and great for our community. The resolution reads, whereas the junior Pee Wee black football team is comprised of a fourth and a fifth graders of Roy City. Whereas the team went 11-0 in the 2019 season. And whereas in 7 games the team scored more than 200 points. Wow. And whereas on Saturday, October 26th, Roy City Junior Pee Wee Black football team won the Mini Bowl championship by a score of 21-7. And whereas the team's incredible success is a reflection of the coaching staff and their dedication. And whereas, sounds pretty legal, doesn't it? Whereas the team consists of Spencer Thomas, make sure we got all of your names down here, Tyler Allen, Jace, is it Burrell? Close enough? Hudson Call, Andrew Charlesworth, Raiden Klimpinger, Tyler Dickinson, Ryder Evans, Cooper Horspool, Cameron Lindstrom, Bode, is it Bode or Bodie? Bodie, Sparrow, Cade Stander, Braylon Twitchell, is it Alexander? Alexander? Perfect. Wilberg, Colson Wright, Alan Bravo, Julian Vasquez, perfect, and Connor Young. And let's not forget the coaching staff. James Dickinson, Joel Brella, Nick Call, Kyle Horspool, Jeremy Wright, and Ty Sparrow. Now, therefore, to be resolved that the Roy City Council congratulates the Roy City Junior Pee Wee Black football team for their tremendous championship football season and for the honor and acclaim brought to themselves, their team, and surely to Roy City. Dated 19th of November, 2019. Travis, you want to finish before we take the vote?
I do. I just want to tip my cap to these guys for representing the city. I want to thank them on behalf of my entire department. I'm grateful for all they've done. I want to take a minute and I want to thank my department. I know how much they care in the parks and recreation. The parks taking care of the fields, the recreation being organized, efficient. Special shout out to Lizzie Badger. Lizzie spends hundreds of hours to make sure that all the participants have a positive experience, and this is what makes it all worth it. So, guys, thank you. Take the lessons you've learned this year and carry them over to life, and we're excited to watch you moving forward. So, thank you.
Perfect. Great words. Okay, one last piece, if I can, team. Tonight, I'm going to assume this council will approve this resolution. It will be signed by tomorrow. Travis, if we get the signatures and all that taken care of, could you help us to make sure that every young man and every coach has a copy of the resolution?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Council, do I
Mayor,
have a motion to
I make a
approve?
motion, we approve Resolution 1929, honoring the Mighty Mites for their 2019 season.
Perfect. Do I have a
I'll second that
second?
motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Burrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman?
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton?
Aye.
Councilmember Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. Thank you, and well done. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, coaches. Thank you so much.
Can we get you to squeeze in real quick so we can get a quick picture?
I just want to add what a great group of individuals. My wife and I had the pleasure of driving these individuals to their final football game, and it was really fun to be involved in it.
Parents, I'll post it on Facebook. I'll post it on Facebook. Okay. Scoot it even tighter on the edges. Okay. And squat down or kneel in the front. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Lastly, we have some light refreshments downstairs in the basement for you guys. So Lizzie and Jean will take you down there. Thank you again.
They get pretty hyped up.
Thank you.
So far, my record in the party bus is always. Wow, they're emptying the chambers. Party's over. Yeah, I say we reconvene downstairs. I say we reconvene downstairs.
We're going to let everybody basically go ahead, who wants to exit, to go ahead and exit, then we'll finish. Again, perfect. Okay, council, we have Resolution 1928, adopting changes to personnel policy. Camille?
Great, Mayor and Council, it's wonderful to be with you this evening. Tonight, we are proposing resolution number 19-28, adopting changes to the personnel policy. We, as department directors, along with the city attorneys and city manager, have met regularly over the past few months to review the personnel policy and come together jointly tonight to recommend the following changes that are outlined in your resolution. We are proposing a general cleanup to the language in the personnel policy to reflect current standards, practices, and state and federal statutes. Some of the general changes include removing gender references and updating the fire department shifts from 24 to 48 hours to reflect operational changes that have taken place. The proposed resolution also removes old policies that no longer pertain, such as employee committees. We are also recommending changes to help with recruitment throughout the city. These changes include adjusting the leave accrual rate for employees during their first year of employment from 6.75 days per year to 14 days per year. We're also proposing changes to the dress policy and will allow each department to determine their individual dress codes as needed for the scope of work within their departments. We discussed with you during the work session back in May that we would like to offer a new option on the unused sick leave incentive. This new policy would allow a third option for employees to receive a payout instead of converting their unused sick leave to annual leave or to their retirement accounts. This would not increase the city's budget and would only impact approximately 20 employees each year. We also want to recognize the importance of retention and give employees the opportunities to grow and develop their skills. So we are recommending a certification bonus that would have to be pre-approved by the department director and the city manager and would allow employees to receive a bonus when a non-required certification has been completed. And we want to highlight the changes to the evaluation process. Currently, the city is using an evaluation program that's based on factors, and we would like to switch to an employee performance-based evaluation that would provide more feedback both to the employee and the supervisor, as well as formally setting goals and expectations for the upcoming year. The final change we want to highlight was submitted to you just prior to the beginning of this meeting. This change required additional research to ensure the city's compliance with federal, state, and OSHA standards on post-accident testing, and we are proposing updates to our policy accordingly. So with that, we recommend you approve Resolution 19-28, adopting changes to the personnel policy.
Thank you, Camille. Council, questions, comments?
I think
Good
they were
work.
all good changes.
They were. Well
Okay.
done, thank you.
Thank you.
I do need to, correct me if I'm wrong, Camille, then based on your comment would be is if we take the motions, this is an additive, I need into that motion then to include this portion.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
include that instead of what was.
So if you'll just take a look at that and just make sure you reference that, don't have to necessarily read it word for word, but reference that so that the approved motion is in fact encompasses this change.
Yeah, including the handout that you're given.
Oh,
That'd be
okay, we just
sufficient.
included the handout.
Yeah. Okay. No more comments? Do I have a motion to approve then Resolution 1928, adopting changes to the personnel policy?
Mayor, I'd like to make that motion that we adopt Resolution 19-28, adopting the changes to the personnel file as written, also including the information that was changed and amended in the handout that was given.
Okay, I do now have a motion. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, I've got 2 seconds. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Burrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman?
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton?
Aye.
Councilmember Paul?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. Thank you, council. Okay, we have Resolution 1930, adopting interlocal agreement and mutual aid fire protection agreement between Roy City and North Davis Fire District. Jeff, thank
Yeah,
you.
Mayor, Council, appreciate it, thanks. Resolution 19-30, again, is just looking for adoption of the interlocal agreement for mutual aid fire protection between Roy City and North Davis Fire District. We had an old MOU. It just basically brings us in line with what we have, other mutual aid agreements with other agencies in the county. So just looking for adoption of that tonight.
Okay. Council comments, questions?
Read it.
Okay, hearing none, then do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 1930?
I'll make that motion that we approve Resolution 19-30, adopting the interlocal agreement.
Brian, go for it.
Okay. Okay, for mutual aid and fire protection, perfect. Okay, do I have a second?
Oh.
I'll second it.
Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, and this is, Jeff, you're going to speak to Resolution 1931, approving the interlocal agreement between North Davis Fire District and billing and collection for fees for paramedic service. Go ahead, thank you.
Yep, yeah, we're just looking for approval of the resolution 19-31. Again, this is the same agreement we have interlocally in Weber County with all the ambulance transport agencies. North Davis, we transport not very often throughout the year with North Davis. If we get something on the freeway where we're rendezvousing or working on them on a mutual automatic aid response, this just kind of cleans up the language that we currently have and puts us into agreement on how we will bill for paramedic fees when North Davis's transports. It's the exact same agreement we have with any other ambulance transport company in the city, or with that we contract with anybody else in the county, excuse me. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, council, comments, questions? Okay, then, do I have a motion to approve then Resolution 1931?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve Resolution 1931, approving an interlocal agreement with North Davis Fire for billing and collection of fees for paramedic services rendered during ambulance transport.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. A first and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay, then we have Resolution 1932, adopting the 2020 Roy City Council meeting dates. Go ahead, Matt, would you like to talk to that?
Yes, Mayor and Council, all this really is it's a requirement by the state that we adopt all the meetings that we're going to hold next year. We can obviously add some, but this is going to be our official council meetings. We're sticking to the regular first and third Tuesday of the month at 5:30 located here, so we would suggest that you would adopt this resolution.
Okay. Council, those dates, everything look good for you? Any comment, questions?
I appreciate the change from the 6 o'clock to the 5:30. I think that's
Yes,
kind
we
of
have been
positive
liking it very
change.
well.
Okay. Okay, with that then, do I have a motion then to adopt Resolution 1932?
Mayor, I'd like to make that motion that we adopt Resolution 1932, adopting the 2020 Roy City Council minute dates.
Perfect. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate that, council. Okay, we have Resolution 1927, creating voter participation areas based on a new law that was recently passed. Matt, you want to talk to that, and then we'll introduce our
Yes.
guest.
As you stated, there was a law that was passed, House Bill 119, that required us to create voter participation areas. Fortunately enough, we have Ryan Cowley from Weber County here. He's also, we're lucky to have him on our planning commission as well. He'll be speaking to us, so.
Okay, Ryan, if you don't mind, share with us your ideas, and by the way, appreciate the information.
Yeah, and we do have a few slides, if we could.
And there's a map that was given to you if you want to look at that map. Do you want?
Okay, it'll come up in just a second. We'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I just wanted to talk briefly about HB 119 that was passed this last session. And Cameron Dill from the League of Cities and Towns really did a great job representing the city side of that. And then I was heavily involved on the county side, trying to ensure that the things relating to elections in this came out in a way that would benefit both the counties and the citizens as they do local petitions. This was a fairly large bill. I don't have three hours to go through this, so we're going to be just really brief, but I think it'll cover the subject adequately enough for this setting. So just a couple of highlights from HB 119. What it does is when a group of citizens create either an initiative or a petition or a referenda petition, it basically creates upfront a lot more information that's available. So it creates a proposition information pamphlet that then accompanies the petition out to the voters that has basically all of the information relating to that so that people know exactly what it is that's being proposed. It also creates a pause for legal review, and this was a key component. A lot of times with city councils as well as with county governments, there's not necessarily a clear line between what's an administrative act and what is a legislative act. And what this does is allows a pause in the timeline instead of before where you were just racing towards this timeline that was so critical. Now it creates a pause where there's a legal review, and then once that legal review is done, if it's deemed that it's an administrative item, obviously it's not subject to a referenda. If it is a legislative item, then the clock starts ticking towards the timeline, but it gives that pause to really evaluate the content of it. The other thing that it does is allows for electronic notification to citizens using email addresses, which is another huge benefit, kind of modernizing how we communicate and interact with citizens. It also allows council members and other elected officials to communicate directly with a citizen. Before, that could have been prohibited in most circumstances as basically electioneering, so to speak. And so what this does is if a citizen asks you, hey, what about this? It gives you an opportunity to explain your vote and present information that was presented in the public meetings and have that direct communication without violating the law. So that's kind of a huge opportunity to communicate directly with them. The part really, and the reason that I'm here, is it also created what are called voter participation areas. And this follows the model that's used for statewide initiative and referenda, where they have to go out and gather signatures in a certain number. It's 26 out of the 29 Senate districts around the state. And what this does is it makes it so that one small area in a city doesn't just have a say by themselves. It creates the opportunity that at least 3/4 of these participation zones, signatures have to be gathered within those areas. So it makes it kind of a broad support throughout the community. There's two types of local petitions. There's initiatives, which is basically if somebody wants to create a new law. We saw that last year, if you remember the ballot, there were 4 statewide initiatives on the ballot where citizens tried to create those. Those are state initiatives. If somebody wanted to create a law for Roy City, they could do an initiative petition to create that. There's also a referenda, and this is more common in cities and becoming more and more common, especially with the different zoning issues and things like that they're coming up. But basically, it's when the council passes a law and then the citizens disagree with that law, they can go out and do a petition to refer that decision to the voters.
That's right.
So basically, in short, by January 1st, each city needs to create voter participation areas. Now, because of the classification of the city that Roy is in, it needs to be divided up into 4 participation areas. These don't mean anything outside of the initiative process, but it does need to be broken up. And there's 3 criteria that they used, and they really modeled it after redistricting that's done for federal offices as well as for state house and state senate. So it's basically kind of a redistricting kind of a concept where those areas have to be contiguous. You can't take one side of the city and put it with a totally different side of the city. It also has to be compact, where basically people live in kind of a similar area. There's also some demographic things if you get really deep into the legal impact of that phrase. But the most important part is that they're substantially equal in population. And that substantially equal has never really been defined in terms of access to the ballot, which is what this is about. But just some general guidelines are for federal congressional districts, that's plus or minus 1% deviation. With state houses, the Supreme Court and other courts have typically held a plus or minus 5%. In this area, there really isn't any case law or anything that we can look to. So basically what we want to do is just create areas that are as close as we can get. Now, Roy has 19 precincts, so divide that by 4. You're never going to get a perfectly matched participation area, and this will be kind of a 2-year solution. When we do redistricting in 2022, this will be redone, and then it'll be a 10-year project where every time that we go through redistricting, each of the cities will have to do this as well. So what we did is we kind of just threw together a starting point. Obviously, this is your decision, your city to do. But we basically just threw together kind of a starting point to start the discussion. And being a Roy citizen, I was like, I want to just play around with this and kind of see how close we could get with this area. So what we did is, for example, participation area 1 is the yellow area. Participation area 2 would be the blue area. Participation area 3 would be the green area, and the purple area. And in concept, if somebody came in and they wanted to propose a new law or refer a decision that you made, they would come in and they would have to go out and gather signatures. Depending on the type of petition that it is and whether it's land use or just a regular ordinance, it determines the threshold of signatures that need to be gathered. But basically, they would have to go out and meet that threshold in 3 out of these 4 areas. So that's kind of the concept. With this model here, our biggest deviation was about 3.4%, so we actually got Roy very, very close. In some of the other cities around the county, it's a little bit tougher to do so, but really, I think we got within about 600 population-wise between the largest and the smallest.
Ryan, I have a question.
Yes.
So with dividing up to the areas, you had to keep them within their location, right? Their living. You couldn't take, like you says, to try to get the number of registered voters, throughout the precincts. You couldn't take a precinct from like opposite side of the city to
Has
put
to
it
be
into the
contiguous.
area, right?
Correct. Yeah, they had to be connecting.
They
and
had
it's
to be all
actually based off
connecting.
of population.
Okay.
We tried to get it based off of registered voters, but we were unsuccessful in that.
Okay.
But yeah, so you couldn't take, like Roy 1, which is in the bottom left of this
Right.
map, up with Roy 15 that's
Just-
up in the green
just
area.
wondered.
Yeah, so they do have to be touching each other. Great question.
Because you just said to other cities we're having a hard time with that, so that's why I was wondering, because if you had more rural areas, then they wouldn't have the population, like you said, to be able to pull from, another more populated area.
Exactly. There's some cities that are really long and skinny. Like West Haven, for example, if you look at the shape of it, it's very difficult because it's so narrow in some locations.
Okay.
Okay.
Council questions, other questions, comments? Right, well done. Okay, we appreciate that. Okay, with that, council, we do have a resolution 1927, which is creating voter participation areas. Do I have a motion then to approve resolution 1927?
Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make that motion that we approve resolution number 19-27, creating the voter participation areas that have been created for Roy City.
Perfect, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Excellent, thank you. We now have resolution 1933, approving the job description of recreational office supervisor. Travis?
What was just approved to this resolution or those 4 areas?
Yeah, the resolution basically now identifies all 4 of those areas, okay, as being our participation districts, as outlined.
So you have approved those as the areas?
Yes, that's what we approved. Travis, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's good to be back. I bring before you Resolution 19-33, approving the job description for a part-time recreation office supervisor. This position will be funded from our current budget. We're not looking for any more money. As a matter of fact, we're hoping it alleviates some overtime and other costs. We operate a facility that is open over 100-plus hours a week, and it is critical that we have supervision at the facility at all times. This will allow us some flexibility in our staffing to make sure that we are able to do that, and this person will be in charge of some of our part-time office clerks, as well as they will have stretches where they'll be in charge of lifeguards and things like that. Any questions?
Yes, is this a position that you are going to be opening?
Yes, we will open it up.
When you say part-time, what do you mean by that?
Part-time, we anticipate this probably being about 12 to 15 hours a week. There could be stretches where there is full-time employees or other supervisors on vacations or different things like that, where it could go up to potentially 25 hours in a week, but
But they are typically a 40-hour employee just this
No.
portion of their job?
No, the most hours they're gonna work is typically that 10 to 15
Okay.
with certain stretches, of holidays and different things. Not holidays, more like vacations for other supervisors. They could get up to more, but they would take over that. I mean, shouldn't budgetarily cost us anything because it's an hour for an hour.
But I think the comment, Travis, then would be is this is a part-time employee.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, any comments, questions?
Mayor, I make a resolution, we approve Resolution
33?
19-33, approving the job description for Recreation Office Supervisor.
Okay, got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Burrell?
Aye.
Councilmember Paul?
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman?
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Okay, a lot of resolutions tonight. Resolution 1934, approving contract for the demolition of the Moita building. Ross, I think you're talking this one?
Yeah, I'm here just to ask you to approve contract with Perez Company for the amount of $119,687.
Could you give that number one more time?
$119,687. We had 4 companies bid on it, with Perez Company being the low bid. We've talked to other companies, cities that have used them, and they were happy with them, so,
That includes the asbestos remediation?
yep. They're required to get a state permit with the air quality and permit from Steve, so.
Okay.
Did they give us a timeline on
Yeah,
that?
that's what I was wondering.
Huh?
Did they give us a timeline on that?
It's gonna probably take 3 weeks to get the state permit, and then after that, we will start right away, so,
Just so this year.
yes.
Okay.
Well, not before January, probably after January,
Okay. Within the
Okay.
next 6 months.
yes.
Okay.
Does that allow you to have the extra area you need to relocate equipment?
It's about the exact same size as the railroad property. So
Okay,
everything we
we
have
won't
back
lease
there
it.
will move to, yes.
Good deal. That'll be good to
Yeah,
turn
we-
back the railroad property,
Yep.
save some money every year.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's about a $30,000 lease we're paying on that. And this will give Ross and his team an opportunity to move all those assets to the front. And then we can negotiate getting out of that $30,000 a year lease. So, yeah, we're excited. Okay, any other questions for Ross on this topic? Okay. Council, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 1934?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and approve resolution number 19-34, approving the contract for the demolition of the Moita building with the Perez Company.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jan, thank you for the second. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Saxton?
Aye.
Councilmember Paul?
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you, council. Okay, we do have a public hearing. We're going to talk about ordinance number 1916, amending the Roy City General Plan. With that, if I'd like just to have Steve step up, kind of give us a little background, and then we'll open up for public comment.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. I think it's the first time we've had so many items where I wasn't involved with most of them. So I'm really happy tonight. This ordinance is really to amend the general plan to come in compliance with the state statutes of Senate Bill 34. Senate Bill 34 is more for the affordable housing aspect. The state within that bill had 23 strategies that you could pick from, and every city had to have a minimum of 3 unless you had a fixed rail station and you had to have a 4th. The 4th one is too particular, you had to pick one of the 2. When we sat down with the Planning Commission and looked through it, all 23 of them, they came up and says, we could do 10 of these with any problems within the city. There was quite a few of them that were seek opportunities to get funding from or partner with agencies that helped with modern income. So we just have a policy that if a developer came, we'd say, okay, if you want more affordable housing, go partner with somebody, get some money, and help them on that aspect, and rather than giving them tax incentives or what have you. The other aspect was one that you could pick, have CRAs or RDAs in place. Well, tonight, you're gonna look at 2 of them. So again, it's just those things that we're already doing that fell in line. So the 10 that are within the staff report are the ones that the Planning Commission also looked at. To backtrack a little bit, the reason we have to have these adopted and submitted to the Department of Workforce Services by December 1st. The reason why it's so late in the year on this aspect is, as you know, we're currently updating the entire general plan, which also included an affordable housing or moderate income housing element. So the thought was, well, we'll just wait until that's ready, but we don't want to get dinged or have a mark against us saying, well, you didn't satisfy it by the December 1st, therefore, some monies will be taken away. So when we sat down with the Planning Commission again, they looked at it, and it really reads as goals within the policies and objectives as written within the general plan. So again, the 10 items that they picked are highlighted in the ordinance. They did go through a public hearing. The 2 comments or 2 individuals that made comments are within the staff report and kind of the generalization of what they are concerned about and what their concerns were. Other than that, both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Council, any comments, questions on this particular ordinance?
Now, was there, just one question, was there a time period that we had to have our percentage within the city of affordable housing?
What do you mean by a percentage?
I thought there was, we had to have a percentage. No, we just have to make sure that it's within our general plan.
Within our general plan.
To make sure that we accommodate the affordable housing.
Last year, we did a report on what we have and what's there.
Okay.
Roy fared really well. The only aspect we got dinged on are availability of units.
Okay.
I mean, we had enough in each of the quadrants, it's just people are renting them, so they're not available anymore, and that was where we got dinged, and it's really hard to say, I gotta have those available and not be rented. But in the aspect, other cities are struggling to find those homes and units where we're pretty good.
Yeah. Now, just to bring some context to Steve's point, Senate Bill 34 makes it very clear. If we don't get in compliance with at least 4 of these elements, then the issue really comes down to is they can hold up transportation investment funds. Let me just make it clear what that is. That is the I-15 interstate, okay, at 5,600. It is widening of 5,600. It is widening of 3,500. These are major corridors that UDOT basically owns, and the law is very clear that if we're not compliant with Senate Bill 34, then the Department of Workforce Services Director will notify the Director of UDOT and indicate that Roy City is not entitled, okay, to some of that transportation investment funds as well as the transit transportation funds, which deals with the site, the train station. So Steve and the planning organization's position would be is that we have this now opportunity, and we're hoping that the council will consider that as we try to get compliant with Senate Bill 34 before the 1st of December. If the council predicated on their decision tonight approves that, then the city has to send a letter with a copy of the general plan with the changes that's been identified to the Director of Department of Workforce Services. And we're ready to make all that happen based on the outcome of this discussion tonight. So council, any comments, questions for Steve?
No. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we go into public hearing.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect, okay. This is an opportunity. If you have a comment on this, please step up. All we need is your name and your phone number, or excuse me, your home address. Don't want your phone number, just your. Yeah, just on this one. Yeah, we're going to go into the general public comment here in a minute, Jerry. Okay. Any comments on this particular action? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to go out of public hearing.
Mayor, I'd like to make that motion we go out of public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Council, any other questions or comments? Okay, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance number 1916?
I'll make that motion
Okay,
to approve ordinance number 1916 to amend the Roy City General Plan, Chapter 6, Residential Development, Goal 3, Future Moderate Income Affordable Housing Needs.
thank you. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. Okay, we now have, got a lot on our plate tonight. We need to approve the 2019 general election canvas. Morgan, you're going to walk through us on that.
Yeah. I missed my page. There it is. Sorry. Mayor and council, our 2019 general election canvas, we had, excuse me, 15,186 registered voters and ballots that were mailed. We had 5,419 ballots returned, including election day voters as well as by mail early provisional ballots.
Cast.
Of those, we had 5,304 ballots returned and counted. 301 were returned undeliverable, and 55 ballots were not counted at all. 20 were returned past deadline, 18 were unsigned, and 17 did not match signatures for the voters, resulting in those 15 that were not counted. We had our results. Ann Jackson had 3,090 votes. Diane Wilson had 2,948 votes. Joe Paul had 2,945 votes. Trina Favero had 2,098 votes. Dave Tafoya had 1,695 votes. And Braden Stander had 1,585 votes, leaving Ann Jackson, Diane Wilson, and Joe K. Paul as our 3 new city council members for the 2020 through 2024 term.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Any questions for our recorder on this topic?
Mayor, I make a
I have just,
Go ahead.
are those numbers up, down from the previous election? Do you know?
From the primary election, I think they're actually really close.
Are
This is
they?
about how many voters we had turn out for the primary election. I think we had 32% turnout for the
Oh, wow.
primary, and then 35% turnout for the general. So we had a really good turnout.
So-
As far as our normal election, I would know that. Ryan, do you have that off the top of your head?
I am looking right now. Looks like we had 39% 2 years ago. So a little bit down, but we also had the mayoral race, which typically draws a little bit larger crowd.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay,
all right.
thank you. Okay, and obviously, 35% of the population voting is okay. I think we're one of the lowest cities, obviously, in the counties at that low number. We surely encourage individuals to take advantage of their voting rights. It's important to the city that their voice be heard, so. But with that, council, what I need a motion to approve then the 2019 general election canvas as stated.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, this is an all in favor, I believe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay, then the election is approved. The election canvas is approved as stated. Thank you, Morgan. Appreciate that. Okay, what I'd like to do, if I can, I'd like to go into, just finish the city business side, then we'll walk into the RDA. With that, I'd like to open the conversation to public comments. If you have something you'd like to talk about, please step up. All we need is your name and your address, and then share with you anything you'd like to share with us. Thanks, Jerry, for waiting.
Sorry for goofing up. Jerry Williams, 5663 South, 3600 West. I just have one simple question. Why do we have speed bumps on 5700 South?
Question was, why do we have speed bumps on 5700 South?
That appeared to be permanent.
Okay. Anybody want to take a shot at that one? Ross, Matt?
Matt?
Well, I believe what you're insinuating is the difference between speed humps and speed bumps, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll just cut to the chase on that. Obviously, you were part of the discussion
May
before,
1st.
so I'm not really going to go into that. The speed humps down there, the third one, the one closest to 3500 West was fairly aggressive. Today, we went down there and tried to mill that down a little bit.
Seen that.
We went over it again this afternoon, the police chief, myself, and the public works director went down there. It's asphalt, so we plan to have it settle a little bit, and then also we're gonna have plows going over it, and it's gonna be continuing to knock it down. Furthermore, if we need to address it again, we can take them out and then redo them. But yes, we realize that they're a lot more aggressive than the plastic ones that were put in initially, and that was not our intent. We were thinking they were gonna settle a little bit more. That's why we took action today, and they didn't sell as much as we thought. I think if it was a little hotter, it would probably settle a lot more because it's asphalt.
I
So
think
our-
only the one of them was more aggressive
The
than
first
the
one
roller
was
humps.
definitely more aggressive. When we went out and measured it, it was actually an inch to an inch and a half higher than the other two. So our intent isn't to make a speed hump by any means.
Okay,
We want to mimic what those
For
others
a
were.
matter of time, so we don't have to just keep on beating this dead horse.
Mhm.
Why is it that the city cannot do anything that they say they're going to do? And I will quote Mayor Dandoy.
Go ahead.
In the May 1st meeting, he had a conversation with somebody there, and he said, we record these for a reason, so in 2 years from now, when you come and say, Mayor Dandoy, you said this, then I can say, yes, I did. Throughout that whole meeting, the placards that were put up there, they showed speed humps.
Correct.
Huge difference, okay? Every word that came out of Mayor Dandoy's mouth, every word that came out of your guys' expert on roadways, I think his name's Dr. Perrin,
Correct.
speed humps. In
Correct.
fact, the question was asked, are these gonna be like in the parking lots at the grocery store? And he said, absolutely not. If the city puts a speed bump in there, they're in violation of not only UDOT, but the Federal Highway Administration. If you look up, we got these right here, little cell phones, it's really simple. Look up speed bump versus speed hump. It is clear as mud. You guys have speed bumps. They are not supposed to be on public roadways. They are meant for parking lots and private drives. And in that same meeting, your guys' expert, not my words, not a disgruntled citizen, your guys' words, your expert said that the speed hump will be 20 feet wide. So you start at 0 for 10 feet up to 4 inches maximum, and then you go from 4 inches to 0 again in 10 feet. Right out of the mouth of the expert that you guys brought in, that you guys are so fond of. And right out of the mouth of the mayor, council members, through the whole meeting, and I go into your words, go back and listen to it, it's been recorded. And I've listened to it 2.5 times, and believe me, it was painful, very painful, because that was a long, boring meeting. So why can't the city do what they say? Just to add to that, we had to pull out a calming circle at taxpayers' expense. We've had other issues with a retirement home because the city didn't do what they said they were gonna do, and at taxpayers' expense. So now here we are again, and I don't like to come to these things, but here I am because you guys put speed bumps instead of speed humps. And it's as different as day and night. So don't tell me it's black when it's white, or if it's a horse and it's a cow, okay? Speed bump, speed hump, clear as day, clear as day. There's no reason for us to have speed bumps when you clearly stated, let's get this right this time. We're gonna do this right, not like last time, and you turn right around, and lo and behold, we have speed bumps. The latest one, like you said, even now, you still have to come almost to a complete stop to get over the thing. That's why they're not to be put in public roadways. And in fact, Dr. Perrin again stated, this man right here, Mark Bishop asked the question, so can you hit those at 25 miles an hour? He said, yes, that's how they're designed. I'd like to see any of you take your $40,000 car and hit that one at 25 miles an hour. I would challenge you. Let's go do it right now. I'll bet it'd be interesting. So why? Who can answer that question? Why do we have speed bumps? When you clearly stated, every word out of every one of your mouth, the whole meeting, and it lasted for about 3 hours, speed hump, speed hump, speed hump, speed hump, speed hump. Speed bumps do not belong on public roads. From your own experts, from your own people, and we have speed bumps. Why? That's a simple question. Why? Now we have to go tear something out and redo it at taxpayers' expense again because we can't do what we say we're going to do. I don't understand it. When I tell you I'm going to cut your grass, I cut your grass. That's what you expect me to do. But not the city. No, they say I'll cut your grass. Heck, they probably bring more grass in. They do whatever they want. I don't get it. I hate to be riled up, but I don't get it. I don't understand. Why? I'm open for suggestions. What can we do about this?
Well,
This has been a hot topic too, so you'd think that with the hot topic that it's been and how divisive it's been, that you would have just done what you said you'd do. Just so
Understand.
you don't have me here freaking out.
Well, Jerry, you bring up a good point. Here's what I would ask is that they're now going in. I think we just need to step back and answer your question. So,
That's all I'm asking.
okay, let us take a shot at it. I think you bring up a good point. There is a fundamental difference between a speed bump and a speed hump. And you're right. In that meeting, the discussion was speed humps, all during that meeting. So let us step back, take a look at it, and then I know you personally. I'll call you and I'll say this is what we're going to do or how we're going to try to fix the problem. Fair enough?
That's all I can ask for.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Sorry for
Thanks,
getting
Jerry.
so wound up. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for your comment. Anybody else like to share a thought with us? Any topic is okay. Okay, we take them all. This is your moment. Okay, seeing none, then do we have a motion then? Well, we don't have to have a motion to go out of public comment, period. We just move on to the city manager and council report. City manager report. Matt?
Yeah, just a friendly reminder. Next Monday, November 25th, will be the tree lighting ceremony. It starts at 4:30. We'll have a couple of schools. North Park will start it off with some singing. The lights actually turn on at 5:30. But along with this, I would like to note that ABC 4 is doing Weight of the Call. It's a 5-part series. The last part of that series is going to be at the Royce City Fire Station. Jeff Como will be on the panel, and they're going to be using the Christmas lights as a backdrop. So have a little bit of publicity press there, so it'll be kind of nice. Like to invite you all to November 27th. We'll be feeding the seniors at the Hope Center. That will be at 11:30. Really, we don't prepare the food, we just serve the food to them. And we'll also have another opportunity for a Christmas dinner at the Hope Center on December 11th. I'd like to invite you out. We have the fire department as well as the finance department there to assist us. So, also for the audience, we've put the new speakers in. We rewired the speakers, so hopefully, if you guys continue to have problems, please let us know. The planning commissioners at their meeting, they said that they could hear a lot better. So if we ever have problems, we can turn up the rear speakers and not so much up here, so we don't have the reverb down into their microphones. So
Perfect.
anyway, that's all I have.
Okay. And I encourage the council, if you do have time, to join us at the Hope Center on those 2 dates. It's a lot of fun. We get to serve, usually the police officers and or the fire department people basically actually deliver, but we're out there kind of throwing things on the plates, and they really enjoy it. So it's a great opportunity of good interaction between
Sorry.
between the city and the senior
Just
citizens.
one more clarification. Is the one on December 11th also at 11:30?
No, that one I believe is at 1:30.
1:30?
Yeah.
Because he didn't say that.
Yeah, if
Okay.
you'd like, I can tell you exactly those times. 27 November, it is at 11:30
Okay.
at the Hope Center. And if you
Okay.
can make it, please consider that.
Yeah.
And then on the
11th is the one. I was-
11th, it's, no, actually, it is at 1:30.
1:30? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. Okay, Matt, thank you. Council, anything you'd like to share? Any comments,
Yeah, I've got two.
please?
First of all, thanks, Roz, for the signage at 5,900, you really, you saved the battery in my cell phone. So, right behind the new medical clinic, there's a stubbed road. And the contractors were all parking in that stub. And the one lone resident that is, 90 plus, was getting stuck in her driveway all the time. And so we finally got some signage up that I think will help. So thanks. And then secondly, last week I had a speaking engagement, and little did I know that it was going to be with some park recreation consultants. And it was the firm of Grant, Lane, Zach, Ammon, and Colton. They drew up their request while I was there speaking to this group, and I'm supposed to give this to Travis Flint. And when you see this, these are ideas that they would like to someday see in our parks. So if you can make any of these work, we're going to be way popular, okay? Anyway, other than that, I've got nothing.
Anything else, council? Let me just make a comment, Chief Carl. These last few days, okay, we have been witnessing on the news some incredible things taking place out of your departments. I don't know how you do it. We have obviously airplanes hitting signs, and your first people on the spot. Reports of your men and women basically going in to rescue people out of burning houses. You don't necessarily like to see a lot of that publicity across the state on some of the bigger state news directors, but it's refreshing that when we do see it, the professionalism and the effort that your team makes. I know probably next meeting you may have some things you'd like to do and maybe talk more about it, but I think I can speak for the council. It's refreshing, okay, honestly, to witness, maybe not firsthand, but the information coming in about how your teams have done some incredible things and saved some incredible lives. No question, you're making a difference in this community, and I just want to make sure you understand that. So thank you. What an effort. Yeah, incredible. So with that, I'd like to basically step out, if we can, council, with your consent. I'd like to have a motion then to recess the city council meeting and enter into an RDA board meeting. Do I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now going to recess the city council. If you want to take just a second for those who have joined us on the city council before we step into the RDA board.
Thank you, guys.
Young men, thank you. Okay, we do appreciate you joining us tonight. Well done. Thank you. Okay, board members, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I'd like to convene then and welcome you to the Roy City RDA board meeting. You have a copy of this board meeting agenda sitting in front of you. What I'd like to do is I'd like to basically start off and just work the consent items. They include the approval of the September 17th and the October 1st, 2019 Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes. With that then, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask if you have any comments or questions concerning the minutes of those two meetings. Okay, seeing none, then do I have a motion then to approve then the September 17th and the October 1st RDA board meeting minutes?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing none, thank you. We'll approve those minutes. What I'd like to then is I'd like to basically begin by recognizing we're going to open up a public hearing for the 1900 Southwest CRA. And CRA basically stands for Community Reinvestment Area. We're going to have that conversation, and then we're going to ask for public input once we kind of get an introduction in terms of CRAs and the process. And I've asked Randy if he would go ahead and present that information to not just the board, but also those individuals who would like to listen to it. And so we'll begin then, if we now turn the time over, Randy, if you'll go ahead and maybe define a little clearer for us this, the CRAs and what we're about to get involved in. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to walk you through this process and these public hearings. First of all, there are a couple of things that we need to put on the public record because there are some procedural things that we are required to do when we create these community reinvestment areas. The first thing I need to state is that the redevelopment law requires that we send notices out to the property owners. We're not required to send a notice to anyone else but property owners and taxing entities. And those notices went out for both of the project areas that we'll talk about today, 30 days in advance of this public hearing. I'm going to, the notices were mailed based upon the address that is shown in the Weber County records for where tax notices go. So that is the address that we're required to use. I'm going to ask Morgan, she did receive some letters back that were undelivered from the post office, so I'm going to ask her if she just read the names of those letters that were returned for purposes of the public record.
We received a letter back for Hart LLC, 545 Investments, Shirley P. Olison, SHP. That's the final one that we received back.
Okay, in addition, we're required to put the public notice of this public hearing on two websites, the Roy City website and the Utah Public Notice website. And that was done 14 days in advance of this public hearing. The other thing I want to point out is that we put in the letter that we sent to property owners that they had the opportunity, if they wanted and chose to do so, to meet with the city prior to the public hearing. And I'm going to ask Matt if he just outlined those property owners or individuals that we either met with or called to ask us particular questions.
Yeah, I had a couple of the property owners reach out to me, Doug Painter, Sally Gardner, and Aaron Eames. I believe somebody has talked to Janine Humphreys as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so then let me go in and talk about what it is that we want to do tonight. So basically, the public hearing is going to follow this outline. I'll give a quick introduction to the community reinvestment areas. As we said, we have two project areas. We have the 1900 Southeast CRA and we have the 1900 Southwest. Basically, one is the west side of 1900 and one is the east side of 1900. The first public hearing will be the Southwest, so that'll be the first one we'll have, and then as soon as we get the property owner comments on that, then we'll proceed to go into the next public hearing, which is the Southeast. Basically what this is that under the Utah state law, and that's what we follow, redevelopment agencies are a creature of the state. In other words, the state gives us the authority to act as a redevelopment agency. And in that law, it allows that what's called the Community Reinvestment Act, Utah local governments have the authority to conduct economic development activities within communities through their community reinvestment agencies. So the redevelopment agency of Roy City is one of those community reinvestment agencies. Under the law, it's a separate, independent entity, but the law requires that the city council serves as the board of directors and that the mayor serves as the chair. But they're separate. They have their own funding. They receive their own funding. They do not use city funds. They collect their own funding through tax increment. There's a process that they have to go to get that approved, which includes going to meeting with every entity, taxing entity that levies a tax within the project area and ask their permission to participate in the project area. So we have a defined process that we have to go through when we create these. There are 4 types of areas, but the one that we're really focusing on tonight is a community reinvestment area, and that's where we're going to focus on tonight. When we establish a CRA, then what basically happens is right now the property taxes, right now the areas that we're creating currently have an assessed value. And that assessed value is paying a certain amount of property tax. And that property tax goes to the different taxing entities. Roy City receives some of that. Weber County School District receives that. Weber County receives that. The North Davis Sewer District receives that. So there are a number of taxing entities that receive a portion of the property tax that is levied. In a redevelopment project area, what happens is if new development were to occur in that project area, the increase in the property tax over and above that base level could go to the redevelopment agency, and the redevelopment agency can use that for development within that defined project area. So you have to define the project area, you have to have new development, you have to go get approval of the taxing entities to use that before it's available for use. And so the law does allow us to use that to aid existing businesses that might want to renovate or development. It allows us to participate in new development. It allows us to build infrastructure. We can do housing. We can do crime reduction. Those are the main things that we use the tax increment that we receive for. There's a number of steps we have to go through, focusing on the 4 steps that we're in. Back in May of 2019, or 2018, we passed a resolution designating a survey area. We took our time to review that, to go through all of what's in there, look at the properties, look at the property owners, get the assessed values, look at taxes, and we prepared a budget and a plan based upon the information we were gathered together. We then have to have a public hearing, which we have to notify, as I mentioned, by notice to property owners and to the taxing entities, and that's where we are tonight. If after the public hearing, you as a redevelopment agency board decide to move forward and create these areas, you will do so by the resolutions. You will adopt a resolution adopting the plan, and you'll adopt a resolution adopting the ordinance. The reason we recessed the city council meeting is there are 2 ordinances that the city council has to act on. The law requires that it's set up by ordinance by a city. So if we move forward with that, you would go back into your your council meeting and act on those 2 ordinances, and that's why we recessed it. Let me talk now I'll talk about the Southeast CRA area. I've put up a picture of that. The map was included along with the legal description in the notice that was sent to the property owners. But basically, this takes where Roy starts on Riverdale Road and comes up along Riverdale Road and it comes down. It excludes what we defined as the marketplace, which is the Harmons and the 2 retail wings that are on there. But we pick up the other side, which is Dilly Dally's, and then we continue to take the property from there all the way to Walgreens. So that is the defined project area. It includes the Allied storage sheds to the east, and it takes in that property there. That is the defined project area that we have for this. And again, we came up with those boundaries after we took a look as to what would have potential for future development. And that's how we selected those areas. In putting our budget together, and again, it's a proposed budget. We have to, under the law, adopt a budget, but the budget can change as development occurs or happens within the project area. Now, I want to make it very clear that we do not have, and I want to emphasize, right now we do not have any proposed developments that have come before us. We've had interest about potentially developing in the area, but we do not have a project planned. We're creating these project areas now so we can be ready for when an opportunity comes in and we can move quickly on that opportunity. So making the assumptions for the southeast budget area, basically we took the area that would be available for development, which is the acreage, and then we made some assumptions about what could potentially be new commercial or existing commercial development, and we've had some interest on perhaps there be some residential put in this area. And then what we did is we figured out, based upon current assessed values, what that dollar amount would be, what it would be assessed at, and then we developed a budget. So for this particular project area, we've estimated that given the size of the area, what we think can happen from a commercial standpoint and from a residential, we believe that assessed value will increase from 20 million, which it is today, to a potential 56 million in the future as development occurs in that area. So that's about almost 3 times increase in assessed value as we move forward with that development. And again, that really depends on what happens with proposed projects and development in the area. Of that request for the tax increment participation, what we're going to ask for in this project area, in fact in both project areas, we will approach those taxing entities, again, those that levy taxes, and we're going to ask them if they would participate with us by giving us 70% of that increase in new property taxes for a 20-year period of time. Now, we picked those numbers because as we've looked at what has been adopted and approved by the taxing entities to date with other project areas that's been created in the county, we see that it's between 60 and 75%, so we took 70%. Now, again, that's our request. That doesn't mean we're going to get it. That doesn't mean that they'll approve it, but that's our ask. And we have to go through a process, and particularly the school district has adopted a policy that outlines how they will participate with the tax increment, and we will need to go in there and meet their policy and get the school board to approve that participation, as well as the county commissioners. The redevelopment agents come back to the city, get the city to agree to participate that. So that's a process we have to go in the future, but that's what we're asking for. What that means is currently the base tax year, which is that $20 million assessment, this slide shows how much money is going to the different taxing entities of that $20 million. As you can see on this slide, Roy City is getting about $981,000 over a 20-year period of those taxes. This is a 20-year period of time. So for that same 20-year period of time, Roy City would get about $981,000 if nothing grew. If no new development happened, if the tax rate stayed the same, that's how that would be. For the increase, the 30%, if we take 70%, the new growth would leave about 30% that would go to the taxing entities. So the taxing entities still receive what they have today plus 30% increase. And then we've added this, so Roy City, in this case, would see a potential, $673,000 of new tax growth that would come from this project area if it develops based on the scenario that we've outlined. The agency budget would be, this represents the 70% of the taxes, which we've estimated to be about $8,773,000. That would be for our use as a redevelopment agency to improve and develop the area. How would we use that increment? Well, what we propose is we'd keep 3% to administer the redevelopment agency. We have costs and expenses. And again, this is redevelopment agency money. By doing this, we then take away the city to provide funding that might go to help spur economic development because the RDA would pay for itself. If it didn't have this redevelopment agency and the city wanted to do economic development, then it would have to fund that out of its existing general revenue funds. So this becomes a benefit by the RDA being somewhat separate. Today, we provide some of our money to the city for some of the services that they provide. We then are required under the law that we have to keep 10% or collect 10% for housing, and that housing can be done within Roy City. It doesn't have to be done in the project area, but it requires us to meet some of the affordable housing requirements. You talked about SB 34. One of the things that you've selected is that you will use the RDA to help you meet some of that affordable housing requirement. And then we would have about a little over 7 million or so to help with development activities. That would become the money that we could work with to do incentives, build infrastructure, acquire property, things like that. On the southwest, which is the west side, again, it's a smaller project area. Its budget is smaller than what we predict because it doesn't have as much land. We're projecting the increment there to be about 21 million, and the base year is 8 million today. So there, again, there's about a 3-time increase. We use the same assumptions, other than we believe that there might be an opportunity for maybe a hotel development in Roy. And so in this project area, we think this is probably a better side of the street for that to happen because it has a corner, 56 and 19, it might be available, that could go there. So we've added here a commercial development, a hotel development, and residential development for our estimates. So those are our estimated budgets. We put a budget document together that outlines this. It's included in there. And again, that's a proposed budget that would be adopted, but it is subject to change and amendment as we move forward with the development. Some of the questions that we sometimes get asked by property owners, and I'll just say that here, maybe I can answer some of those questions, is how does the RDA affect my property? Well, we don't. We don't levy a tax. There was some redevelopment project areas, particularly the urban renewal project area, that could be adopted that might have the ability to have the power of eminent domain. But these project areas do not, and I repeat, do not have the power of eminent domain. So if there was a development that was to occur, then that developer would have to work with those property owners for the purchase of the property. We would not get involved in that other than if the developer came to us and said, I'm paying 30 or 40% more for property, would you allow the tax increment to be used to help with that property acquisition? Then we would consider that. But it's a property-driven process. The property owners have the right to develop their property. They have the right to control the sale of that property. We're just a tool. We're an economic development tool through tax increment financing that can be used for development. So the development has to happen in order for us to get tax increment. If it doesn't happen, then there's no tax increment. So the property owners are not affected by being in a project area in any way, other than they are required by law to get a notice that we're going through this creation process. And so that was one of the questions that we get asked quite a lot about. What does this mean to me? If a property owner wants to develop this property, he can use this same tool, or she can use this same tool by coming to us and saying, I'd like to build, expand my business, I'd like to build a new building, I'd like to tear down what I have and build something new. Great, they have the same opportunity to use the tax increment as would any outside developer. It's a tool. One of the things that we've done with our tax increment from other project areas is we set up the revolving loan fund. The revolving loan fund that we offer, is set up by tax increment, and that allows any business that wants to expand or wants to add on or needs a small gap loan can come to the redevelopment agency and ask to participate. So that's basically what we're here to do tonight. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll end my comments and I'll listen to what comments have to be made by the public.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Okay, with that, board members, I'd like to have a motion then to go into a public hearing.
For the Southwest?
Yeah, specifically you want to do the Southwest Community Reinvestment Project area. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we go into public hearing for the Southwest RDA.
Perfect. CDA? Thank you.
CDA.
CRA.
CRA.
There you
Okay,
go.
let me get
Thank
my
you.
acronyms right.
You got it. Do we have a
Okay.
second on that?
I'll second that with the right acronyms.
CRA.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. This is an opportunity. This will be on the southwest side of 1900. So if you'd like, what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, if you are a taxing entity and are here and would like to make comment, would you please come up to the mic and give us your name and address and make your comments? If there are questions, I'd like to basically just write down the question, and then at the end, after we get to, before we do any voting, see if we can get you the answers, okay? Do I have any taxing entities here?
Charles Mon, it's 5533 South.
It'd be interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just always have strong concerns when I see programs like this. I've watched it over the years. Brian, I've seen you when you're on the other side of the fence, when you were out here working for the Standard. And rarely do I see things go as they're proposed, to be quite frank. So I have strong concerns about this. I've talked to Steve. I'll talk to Steve after, but I'm certainly not in favor of this.
Okay.
Could I have for the record what taxing entity he represents?
5533 South.
Are you a taxing entity?
No, I think what he's just a resident has some serious concerns.
No. I've got the building there. It's the one right next to the laundromat, just to the north.
Okay, so that would have been my next one, property owners. But as a property owner, you have an interest in this discussion?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other property owners that'd like to step up that's dealing with the southwest side as part of the CRA? Any other property owners? Okay. Just general public. Does anybody have a general comment about this southwest side and like to share that? Please just give us your name and address. Thank you.
Bill Merckx, address 5705 South, 2325 West. I don't know, someplace down there.
Thank you.
I didn't hear a description of what the southwest area was. We flipped up a chart here that's too small for anybody in this audience to read. And so I would like to know what area we're really talking about. We're talking about 1900 and 5600, but how far north, how far west?
Okay, let's see if we can give you some landmarks in terms of the location.
Yeah, let me do that one right now. Let me go back here to this slide. So basically, this takes in from 1956 down to 2000, and it proceeds down to about where the Chinese restaurant is, goes back, and then goes to McDonald's. So that is basically the area for the southwest side. So it takes in the property, like I said, some residential on, I think there are 2 residential homes on 2000 that it takes in. Then it goes back, and then it follows the boundaries of the commercial property to McDonald's.
To McDonald's. Does that help? Okay. Okay, go ahead with your...
Another comment.
Please.
Why would anybody think about putting a hotel or a residential property on the most congested area of Royce City? That makes 0 sense. Commercial stuff, great, but not residential.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Please. Name and address. Thank you.
My name is Stacy O'Toole, and my address is 5496 South, 2000 West. Okay. My house is one of those ones on the 2000. I did have a conversation with you. You said you weren't going to raise our taxes and you could not take our houses.
That we were not.
You were not going to raise our taxes, right, and that you could not take our houses. But then he says he has a plan for a hotel on the corner. I'd just like to know how you thinking of a hotel where my house is, if you can't take my house. How is this planned out for 20 years? All of his projections say 20 years on them. Like, are you saving up for 20 years for this?
And that's a good question. I've asked Randy if he would go ahead and mark down your questions, and then when we're done with that, I'd like him to explain then all the questions to make sure that you understand exactly the answers to what you're saying. But to your point, the CRA will run 20 years.
Okay, so all the money will be saved for 20 years?
No.
Well, it doesn't mean it's saved. It'll be collected. But if the CRA works the way it's designed to work, it'll be invested with the property owners to see what kind of development that can take place that maybe the property owner wants to basically develop, or if in fact somebody wants to purchase the property and the developer wants to do something with property. So this is just simply becomes a collection of money that's available to enhance then, what I heard, enhance then any development that occurs within that particular CRA area. Does that help?
Okay, so, but as long as there can't be eminent domain and you cannot kick anybody out in these 4 houses, correct?
That's
I mean,
right.
everybody is saying no one in these 4 houses can be kicked out.
Yeah, let me make it clear, and it was stated in the introduction. We're not talking about taking people's houses.
Okay.
Okay? We're not talking that. We're talking about looking at ways by which we can incentivize development within that area. But I'll have Randy talk to the details of that. But we're not talking about eminent domain. That's not on this discussion.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, is that
Okay.
absolutely cannot happen.
Yeah, it can't happen under a CRA. It can
Okay.
happen in different types of development, but not under this particular
Okay.
development, as we understand it. But I'll let him explain that in much greater detail to you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay? Anything else you'd like to share?
Chairman Dandoy, I need a point of clarification. Sorry, I had to step out for a minute.
Please.
When I left, we were discussing the presentation was dealing with the southeast, west.
Yeah, and then he did the
Okay.
southwest.
Okay, so I just want to make
We've
sure
done
we
both.
covered both. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Is there any other public comments like to share? Please. Name and address?
Good evening. Tim Higgs. I'm 5381 South, 3400 West, Roy.
Thank you.
I would be most interested, before we talk CRA and the options of development in this area, to understand what the development options are for 5600 at South, or itself, to be able to accept the traffic, to be able to come in and out of this new development area. To me, it makes little sense to go into this redevelopment and perhaps put something on 5600 South, only to say, now we're gonna widen that road to be able to accept the traffic going to and from Roy all the way down through Hooper and those associated areas. So to me, it makes more sense to understand what's going to happen with that throughfare and the overpass and that whole project before decisions are made on what the redevelopment area may or may not be to be able to be supported by that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Although I think Randy can talk to the issue about the CRA, let me share with you then what I understand in terms of that UDOT road. 5600 is a UDOT road, state road. It is currently being done an environmental assessment, and that assessment was supposed to be due sometime in October, but they've delayed that. We now anticipate that assessment will be released to the public. We understand it will come to the city first, but it will be released to the residents shortly after that in a public meeting. We believe, although we don't have the final numbers, that 5600 as a state road will be widened. It will be widened to 5 lanes. It will run all the way from 1900 all the way down to 3500. That'll include a bridge, a new bridge, that'll have to go over the tracks. We do not know whether that proposal, that study will go on the north side, the south side of 56. We don't have any of that detail. We're waiting for UDOT to release that to us in terms of their study. It is already scheduled to be part of what's called Phase 1. Phase 1 says it can happen anytime between 2019 and 2030. That's the Phase 1 cycle for widening of 5600. With that decision, again, not having things, the best we believe at this moment is that all funding projects have been funded up to 2023. We think the earliest that will happen, more than likely, will be for widening of that will happen in 2024. That's the earliest. But it will take the Utah Transportation Commission as well as UDOT and what they call the Wasatch Front Regional Council to reset some of the requirements and priorities. But let me just make it clear what's about to happen. And this is very, very important to this discussion about 5600 and the traffic. You don't have to go too far, but simply look on the south side of the museum, and you will witness a 231,000 square foot facility currently under construction. That building will be done on May 1st. I was told that yesterday. They have to, in light of the project and the contractor wanting that facility. I was also told yesterday there's a good chance Falcon Hill will start building the next 231,000 square foot facility to accommodate, in next year, to accommodate the 1,400 or to 2,500 new employees, workers that will occupy those buildings. That is a significant number of people right at that corner. The issue at hand, and we're working this one heavily right now, the proposal to change the interstate. That interstate cannot accommodate, okay, that kind of growth at that location. That is off the charts. And we are concerned, and we're pressing the issue. We already know that 5,600 cannot continue accommodating the massive amount of people driving it today. The annual average daily traffic between 1900 going into that interchange today is 32,000 cars a day. 32,000 cars a day are on that road. When we look at what's happening between 1900 going down 5,600, the numbers are 28,000, and it incrementally goes down all the way to 35. Bottom line is this: if we don't do something with 5,600, and UDOT has control of that issue, we think it's going to reach failure stage. And what I mean by failure is not a corruption of the cement, it's gridlock. And I will trust me, if you've driven on 5,600 anytime recently, don't do it between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, or don't do it in the morning. It's already a parking lot. We have a major transportation challenge that's on us at this very moment, and we're doing everything we can to try to find a solution. So for the traffic issues, we're on top of it. We're putting a lot of pressure, asking for a lot of support to figure out a solution. But this decision to put all of those brand new high-paying jobs at the doorstep of Roy is going to be problematic in traffic. Now, let's be realistic. You put that many people within walking distance of downtown Roy, we think it's also an opportunity for economical development. Those people have to place, they need a place to eat, they need a place to do, and you consider the 320,000 people that annually attend that museum, we have a lot of traffic, a lot of visibility at that location. What I've just told you are realities, and it's going to get worse. So we're trying to find solutions, and we're looking for solutions at the same time, trying to find out answers to help us to ensure that there's opportunities if, in fact, we can provide some economical development. So there's a lot of moving parts here, okay? But that's the transportation piece. Any other public comments in terms of the southwest corner you'd like to share with us? Please.
So thank you for that information. And honestly, with that additional detail, you've made my point better than I ever could have. In that with the additional congestion that you've just outlined, and the additional congestion that we're talking about with this RDA, it would seem to make sense to understand whether it be in March or whether it be a year from now, whatever the timing might hold for the state to make the decision process on what will happen with 5,600. It would seem to make sense to avoid a commitment to the RDA process until such decisions are made on how that traffic is going to be impacted because of everything that you've just outlined. All of us, I mean, those 32,000 cars a day, I'm there twice every day, and I'm two of those cars, and I think all of the other 32,000 must be going at the same time that I'm going through.
There you go. Yeah.
Because it's just sometimes, you know, half an hour, sometimes a half an hour from the exit of 5,600 on the freeway just to the light.
Correct.
So all of us get that and all of us understand it, but it just seems to compound, the discussion that we're having here seems to compound the issue, and 2 wrongs or 3 wrongs don't make a right.
Interesting, you bring a good point, but let me just speak from a development perspective. Interesting enough, developers kind of look at traffic count and rooftops. Let me repeat that. Developers look at traffic count and rooftops when they decide about bringing developments into a community. And I think we are prime. So we have obviously some challenges, but do we also see maybe opportunities? And that's what we have to look at, all sides of this. But no matter what comes out of this today, there's a good chance we will not see anything for a couple of years. Let me repeat that, a couple of years in terms of any development. I think what's being proposed here is setting a condition of opportunity if a development has an interest. We just don't know. We don't have anything firmed today. We're just waiting, but we think maybe the CRAs may be an opportunity to consider, and that's what the board needs to consider. Do we want to set up the opportunity? And that's what we're looking at right now, and we appreciate your input. Anything else in terms of comments? Please.
Curious why you're not extending this CRA further direction that south, all the way down to Clearfield.
To Davis County?
Use that development. Maybe you need 2 more CRAs, or maybe you need bigger ones. But that's an area that's at least as needing of development as the area you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and I noticed I'll get off on the other one just a little bit. You're coming down as far as Walgreens, the Exxon station you're going to leave on that corner, there's a big traffic jam all by itself. So you might want to extend that too.
Okay, we appreciate that. So Randy, I think the question would be is, can the RDA address maybe other CRA opportunities? Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to go out of public hearing.
Mayor, did you want me to answer those?
Yes, maybe you can do that during the public hearing portion, then we'll come back.
Okay.
Please, go ahead. If you have some answers to the questions they asked, please
Just a
provide
couple of
that.
things. So first of all, to Stacy O'Toole, I want to stress, in fact, I'll actually read it in the plan that you will be adopting. When you adopt the resolution, you adopt this plan. Section 13.1 states eminent domain. The Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan does not allow the agency to acquire real property through the use of eminent domain. It's in the plan. We don't have the power, we won't have it for 20 years, it'll never be used. As I stated, if a property owner wants to sell, then it'll be the property owner that'll have that right to sell it. There's no gun forcing anybody's head to do that. Second of all, I want to make it clear on the projects. I indicated that we proposed in the budget that we thought, as we looked at development opportunities within the area, and that being the southwest area, there was an opportunity. We thought that maybe we don't have any projects, we don't have a developer, we don't have anybody that's come in and said they want to do this. Just for purposes of budget, did we indicate that we thought that maybe a hotel could be, and again, I emphasize, could be a potential use that might happen in that project area. We have nothing. We have nothing. No developers come in to us and said, I want to build a hotel there. That has not happened. To Mr. Higgs' comments, I think you addressed that. I do want to state maybe just something else to add to that the redevelopment agency is not planning. We do not have a planning process. The planning process is with the city. So any development that is proposed in these project areas would have to go through the city planning process. And in most of those cases, that planning process includes traffic studies, traffic analysis, and everything else, so they can understand if there is an impact, and if there is, how's that developer or that development going to try to resolve any traffic impacts. And I think the mayor or the chairman was right in stating that it could be a year or two before we have that. But I think we all know, as you clearly stated, 5600 South is not controlled by Royce City. It is controlled by the state of Utah. So the state of Utah will decide when and if and anything they want to do to that road, and that'll be theirs. Now, with that being said.
As well as 1900.
As well as 1900, because 1900 is also a state road. Now, I want to make it clear that I said the redevelopment agency, the RDA does not have eminent domain, but state agencies do. And so I just want to make that clear, that we will not, as an RDA, be doing anything to do with eminent domain. But I can't say if any other, state agency that might want to do something in there would. As far as Mr. Merck's comments about not extending the RDAs, we have an RDA that exists where the former Albertsons, now the Ocean Market, is at. That was put in an RDA some years ago. That is set to sunset in a couple of years, I think. Isn't that right, Matt? 2 years, I think that sunsets. So we probably would either wait till that sunsetted, or we would maybe go in and look at expanding that. The other side of the street was also in an RDA, and I can't remember where that boundary ended. Did that end on the east side to the city limits? I think it did. I think it went to Roy, the power place right there. I think Sacco's, I think, is where it ended. So that was in an RDA. The taxing entities upfronted all of that tax increment for us. So we could either do one of two things. We could extend that project area, abandon that project area, or create one. But I think what we would end up doing, our recommendation, is we would probably recommend proposing additional CRAs going south. I think to put in one would be too big for development. And again, the reason why we look at that is once you trigger your increment, you trigger that increment for the 20-year period of time. So you got to be careful that that your area will develop reasonably within that 20 years. I think I addressed everybody's questions.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttals, any comments? Okay, seeing none, then, do I have a motion then to go out of public hearing and addressing the plan and budget for the 1900 Southwest Community Reinvestment Project area?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We're out of public hearing on that particular CRA. Comments or questions? Board, any feelings, thoughts? What are you thinking?
Well, one of the things I want to address is we know the traffic concern, and it, as Randy stated, any development is going to address that. There's not an imminent development going on right now or in the process. There probably will be in the future. But if we can start this CRA now, we start collecting increments that will allow us to plan for the future when a developer wants to come in to help out with that. So, even though we were to approve this tonight, it's not saying that there's going to be a development there tomorrow, next year, the year after. We're just planning for the future is basically what this allows us to do.
Okay, other thoughts? Let me share just a thought so that we, before we take the vote as the board member. One of the biggest challenge I think we face as a Roy City community is that we see a lot of growth opportunities taking place. I remember very clearly, not too many years ago, it seems that I could drive down through Riverdale, and it was a single road. It's hard to believe that one time in my life I was actually driving down there collecting beans, okay, at 5 cents a pound, I think is what it was. It was really not really aggressive. There was really not a lot of activities. But if you go down there today and drive down Riverdale Road, you will see that they've got 7 lanes, okay, of traffic to move through there. And according to Norm Searle, who's the mayor down there, they literally have 50,000 cars a day on that road. A lot of traffic, a lot of opportunities, a lot of business, and they're not raising property taxes. They get a pretty good sizable sales tax opportunity from the investment that's made there. I've looked at Clinton, and Clinton, I also remember a time before Walmart went in there and changed the whole complexion of that city. And they're in an interesting state, at least from some people I've talked to, that development would like to go into Clinton, but they don't have enough rooftops, housing, to put any more in there. And some of the business owners says unless you do something about bringing more homes into that area, they're not going to expand business. And I found that somewhat surprising. But let me be blunt with you, okay? Roy City does not have that opportunity. We got some vacant vacant storefronts in Roy. And every time a business walks away from Roy, we lose sales tax. Property tax typically stays pretty much the same unless it's burned down, as you may be aware of, but we lose that sales tax. And the challenge we face, if we're going to sustain the quality of life that we have in this city, the great parks, the excellent services, public safety services, trying to make the developments, we have to find a way to pay for that. And the challenge is, and it's a challenge to any municipality, is we need to stop focusing on increasing property tax, and we need to start focusing in terms of trying to generate sales tax so that we can keep our tax base down to the other 90%, 95% of the people who live here. That's hard. It's hard. And so redevelopment or development within the city is so important to us. We have to bring in businesses and help them, have them help us to basically help us continue to provide the support we're having to our community.
To go along with that, Mayor, you know, one thing in the budget that was released is we're up $260,000 in sales tax revenue so far in this fiscal year. Yeah. We're not even 6 months in. If we continue to trend that, we should probably hit over $500,000 in sales tax revenue. So bringing the businesses in, we brought in, I think, 18 or 19 new businesses in the 2 years that this council's been seated. It's making a difference. And through these developments, we'll continue to do that and lighten the load on the property taxes.
Yeah, excellent comment. And so it's all part of this bigger picture. And obviously input from the public is important because we want to make sure that before we do anything, that you feel comfortable that first, if we move in a direction, that direction is the right direction. But equally important that we basically make sure you're involved in this dialogue, because it's important that we make sure that we do the right thing here. And so I do appreciate your input, great input. Any other comments from the council or from the board members? Okay, hearing none or seeing none, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 19.5, approving and adopting the 2000?
We go into public hearing.
Let's do the other public hearing first.
Oh, did you want to do that? Okay.
Make a motion, we go into public hearing to consider the project plan area and budget for the
good
1900 Southeast area.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go ahead and we'll do all the public hearing, then we can kind of decide what we want to do about these resolutions. Thank you. Then do I have a motion then to go into public hearing to address the 1900 Southeast Community Reinvestment Project?
I just
area?
made that. Somebody needs to second
Thank
it.
you. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay, then let's go ahead and let's open up that. I'm not so sure there's any other presentations to prove about that, but I think you kind of understand the thrust of it. Please, if you have some interest in the southeast side of this, I'd like to have your input and comments on that. I'd like to start with, are there any taxing entities? And I didn't hear any from the first one, so I assume there's not any on this one. But do we have any property owners that would like to step up and share a thought with us in terms of their feelings about the east side of 1900? Any property owners? Thank you. Just give us your name and number. Oh, excuse me, not number, I'm asking for addresses, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Darrell Olson. I own the house at 5160 South, 2050 West. That's where I grew up. You know, about a block and a half from here and stuff. I kind of oversee the property from Walgreens over to the marketplace. Okay. And I don't have any vacancies. Because marketplace seem like they have a lot of vacancies. And it's been informative to me, you know, the traffic on 1900, because I can remember 5 or 6 going across 1900, you know, myself. But anyway, I appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to share a thought? Anybody just not have to be a property owner? Does anybody else like to share a thought in terms of the southeast side of 1900? Thank you. Just give us your name and address one more time.
Yeah, sure. It's Tim Higgs, 5381 South, 3400 West.
Thank you.
My question on the east side deals with the business components of the approach. And I'm curious as to why the Harmons was excluded, is the way I understand it. That one little section was excluded. And is that because the business is able to opt out of being included? And what does that mean for the other businesses in that section? I know we don't have the eminent domain that would play into this, but what type of a say do the business owners have in that, and how was Harmon's excluded?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, hopefully we can answer that. Anybody else that would like to share a thought, and we'll try to get your answers. Thank you. Just name and address one more time. Thank you.
Bill Marks, 5705 South, 2325 West. And I apologize for being so vocal. How far east does this go? Does it go up to the interstate, or does it go under the interstate and take in that property, whatever that road is that goes down through Riverdale?
Yeah, the Riverdale Frontage Road, we'll answer that for you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
great question. Anybody else would like to share a comment or ask a question? Okay, hearing none or seeing none, Randy, can we answer a couple of questions here? Thank you.
Sure. To answer Mr. Higgs's comment is, again, the marketplace had been in a redevelopment project area, that the Harmons. And as we looked at that, Harmons is not going to go anywhere. And they are their own owners of that. They own that. They're going to stay for the long haul. We had a meeting with Harmons to see if there was any reason that we should include them in, and we couldn't find a reason. And so, again, if we include it in, we include that base year value, which could impact what we do with the overall development. So we made a conscious decision not to put that in. Now, with that being said, those two retail arms that go out of that, there could be something that could be done with that. And we looked at a way that we could maybe take that in, but at the end of the day, it just, with the boundaries and everything we did, it just didn't make sense to do that. As far as the businesses go, again, if any development were to occur and a business was to be bought out, or a property was to be bought out that had a business, well, those businesses in most places, for the most part, probably have existing leases. And so as part of the purchase price, those existing leases would have to be taken in consideration with the property owner. And then the agency, and we allow that in the plan, would do everything we could to help relocate those businesses to stay within our community. So if a project happens, and if a project happens that businesses need to be relocated or moved, we would work with those businesses to try to find them a new place or keep them there. But they would be protected under the existing leases that they have with the current property owners. Did I answer that question okay for you, or do you have something else?
Yeah, but I think one of the questions would be is what rights I think of the property owner have?
Well, the property owner has the right, and in the plan, basically they control it. If they don't want to sell it, they don't want to develop it, they don't want to have anything to do with it, then there's nothing we could do. They can continue to operate the way they have now under the same condition. But if they had an opportunity and they wanted to sell it, then they would negotiate with the potential developer or other entity that might want to buy their property what that price would be. And again, as I've mentioned, we can use the tax increment to help with making sure the property owner is made whole with anything they want to do. The property owner could also say, as part of the deal, for you to buy my property, you need to assume the leases and you need to take care of my tenants. I don't want them moved out until leases expire. They could also say that I want you to find a place for my tenant. So the property owner has a lot of control in a community reinvestment project area because we have limited powers on what we can and can't do. Again, we're trying to set up an economic development tool to help the city grow its economic development. As the mayor has clearly stated, you have limited revenues that you can participate with. And our goal is to see if we can, through economic development, grow those revenues, sales tax, franchise tax, and even property tax, so that as the bucket of I always say economic development is like a bucket with a hole in it, or city government. You have all of these services that have to be done that are coming out of the hole of the bucket, but you got to keep the bucket full with revenue. And one of the things we're doing is this redevelopment tool is a way to help fill the bucket with revenue so that they can operate without putting the burden on citizens through property taxes. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this. To Mr. Mercks's comment, how far east we go, we basically go to the eastern boundary of Roy City, which would be the freeway. We don't go across the freeway. And then we go, like I said, to Riverdale Road to about where the Hertz dealership is, right there. We take in the Alpine Storage property, which is to the east, and then we go around Marketplace, but then we take all the property along 1900 to 56.
Does the market, just one clarifying, can I just ask?
Please.
So the marketplace exclusion, what about the west side of that marketplace where they just took out that little Chinese restaurant that was there?
Yeah, that wouldn't be in the project area, but again, we, as a redevelopment agency, I don't want to get this too complicated, we have a little bit of fund balance, which is money that we have collected, but we didn't use it for a project. And if there were some development that needed to do or something happened there, we could use some of that fund balance to help them without using the tax increment. But, and we also, if for some reason the property owner, which is Woodbury, wanted to develop that, wanted to tear everything down, then we could create another project area to help them. But I think the base year value, if we kept that Harmons in with it never doing anything, and what you'd look at is you look at what the current value is, and can you put something on that or replace it that will give you a higher value? I don't think there would be anything we could develop where Harmons is that would give us a better value than what is currently there. So that was another reason to exclude it.
Thank you. Thanks for the input. Okay, any rebuttals? Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then board members, I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing in dealing with the Southeast Community Reinvestment Project area. Do I have a motion to go out of public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we go out of public hearing.
On the Southeast, thank you.
On the Southeast.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm getting a little nervous. We may be here all night. I have to have a first and a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay, we're out of public hearing. Okay, great dialogue. Board members, any comments, any thoughts, anything you want to ask? Please.
I have a question.
Please.
We have some people here that are concerned still, just by their facial expressions. Is there any way that we can actually sit down with the property owners and find out what their concerns are? I mean, it's correct that I used to sit on that side for a long, long time. For 30 years, I was a reporter covering meetings. And I just would like everybody to feel a little bit safer, a little bit warmer. I can tell you that in being on the inside, I've asked many questions. And the bottom line is, as the mayor pointed out, if we don't do something economically, we are going to put a heck of a burden on the taxpayers, on the property tax. And the reason why that occurs is because residential doesn't pay for itself. We need that commercial. And this was the easiest, safest way to create that vehicle so that we're not driving a bulldozer through anybody's homes. This is, if you want in, you're in. If you don't want in, you're out. Doesn't matter. But we felt like we needed to do something. As you know, Spirit of Halloween has left that building. That building is vacant. And still, we've got traffic on 5600 South. And that building is vacant. We're getting nothing. And so we've got to do something in order to get ahead of the game. With the jobs that are coming online in our backyard, as again the mayor pointed out, it's important we do that. Economic development is a very important part of any city. For 2 years, I've been working on economic development for the city. I want you to know that for every 10 businesses I call, I get a response. And for every 25 I call, I get enough for them to come and do a look-see. And that's what we're up against. And so, but I want you people to feel as yippee-skippy about this plan as I do. But you're not going to. So help us. What is your concerns? Where do you think we've missed the mark? Because we've taken a lot of time to put this together. Anybody? Yes.
I don't want to put anybody on the
No,
spot, but
no.
the painters was one that I wanted
We'll
to.
go ahead and
Go ahead.
allow public comments, so please make a comment.
Yes.
Are we going to reopen public hearing?
I request we reopen public hearing.
Thank
We have
you.
a motion to go back into a public hearing, is that?
I'll make a motion, we go back into public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
She needs to come up with a whole
Yeah,
bunch.
please, you bring up some great points. Just your name and address so we can hear that for the record. Thank you. I really do enjoy public inputs. This is important to me. Please.
Lisa Bingham, 5533 South.
Thank you.
So Harmon's was taken into consideration. You went to Harmon's. Harmon's is going to be there for the long haul. I still have 30 years to work. I was going to be there for the long haul as well. But you will have no problem shutting down my small insurance agency so that a hotel can go in on the corner and bring Roy City all the money it needs.
We're not shutting down
No,
anything.
no.
We talk about eminent domain.
No.
When push comes to shove and they're ready to buy me out and I'm not willing to sell, I will be pushed out. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Not through this program, though.
Not through the city.
Not by the city.
That's,
No, he said no eminent domain.
that's okay.
Will you please listen to what I said?
Okay.
Please listen.
Okay, we're listening.
First of all, there is no power of eminent domain to push anybody out. That will not happen. If a property owner does not want to sell, if a property owner does not want to participate, if a property owner tells the developer, I'm not interested, so be it. Plain and simple, so be it. The place will remain the same as it is. Nothing will change. No one, and this is public record, so you can get it off the minutes, no one will be impacted. However, if, and I've seen this happen, I have done hundreds of these project areas. I've been doing this for 30 years of my life. And what I see happen is over a period of time, property owners get to the point that they don't want to keep their property. They want to get rid of it. They want to sell it. They want to move on. They want to retire. They want to do something. And so this is just an opportunity that could perhaps have that happen. But if that owner of that property that owns that insurance building that that business is in does not want to sell, so be it. We move elsewhere. We look at economic development other places. But we believe that given what you have stated, with what's happening on the base, with what's happening with other communities, with what's going, we think there can be growth opportunities for those who want to participate. If they don't, fine. We have 17 steps in the creating of a project area and a budget and getting approvals. Today, you're doing steps 7 and 8. We still have to go get approval from taxing entities. We still have to get anybody that's interested. But I've had existing property owners that have had an opportunity where somebody comes into them and says, I want you to be my partner. And all of a sudden, the revenue doubles or triples from what they're making there, and they don't have to put up the capital to do it. They just have to provide the property. So what I'm trying to say is there is no threat to take anybody's business. There is no threat to take anybody's property. We are simply have to go through a state process that says you have to create a project area, you have to have a public hearing, if you want to capture the tax increment, which is the incentive to help your economic development grow. These property owners would have not known that we were doing this had they not got that notice. That's how little impact we have with this community reinvestment area. So nobody's going to be forced to be thrown out. Nobody's going to be forced to sell. If they can't work out a deal with whoever approaches them to buy their property, so be it. If Mr. Mon would like to develop his property and he wants to build something else on it, he can come to us and ask us to participate.
That's
And
true
we
of
would
the city.
consider that.
One thing you stated before that I think needs to be reiterated, if the state is going to widen a road.
We
and-
don't control that.
Exactly.
The redevelopment agency doesn't control that. Roy City doesn't control that. The state of Utah has their own powers. We don't have that. But I'm telling you, the redevelopment agency will not impact anybody's property. This is a property owner process. That's why we decided to go through the community reinvestment process. We could have gone through an urban renewal. We could have talked about looking at the blight and the other things in those project areas. But we decided as a board, no, we don't want to do that. We want to take the community reinvestment area because it still provides us the tools, it still gives us the opportunity, but it has little, if no, impact on the existing businesses and property owners. And I can't stress that any better than what I've done tonight. If people have fears that big old city is going to come in and they're wrong. That's not going to happen. It just will not happen. I have done projects where property owners have said no, and so what happens? The developer goes 2 blocks down the road and comes to the city and say, I have willing property owners and I'd like to build my project there. Fine, we can create a project area over there. But what I'm saying is that it's an opportunity, it provides a tool, and we're putting into place the process in order for us to collect that increment if and when anything develops. And it may sit there for 4 years and not develop. It might sit there for 5 years and develop. And if it's 4 or 5 years, we may come back as an RDA board, or you may come back as an RDA board and say, you know what, let's just dissolve that project area. Because nothing's happening, and nothing will happen. So I can't stress it any better than that we will not be removing businesses. We will not be taking over their homes. The developer and the property owner have to work together to make this happen, period. And all we are is we then facilitate a tool by saying, okay, your project is going to create X amount of increased property tax. We have received the approval from the taxing districts to take a percentage of that, and we'll use that percentage to help facilitate the development. Now, what would that be? We'll help you put in the sewer line. We'll help you build the road. We'll help you put in the parking lot. We'll help you We'll help you demo a building. We'll do all of that stuff for you. But you can't do anything until you've made a deal with the property owners. And the property owners are the ones that control the businesses, because the businesses are leasing from those property owners. Now, if you own the property and own the business, then you're one of the same. So I can't stress that anymore. I don't want anybody to leave here with the fear that government's going to come in and destroy their lives. No, we're not. That is not what this does. It's a tool. It's a tool that's made available through the state of Utah that has made many different wonderful things happen in different communities. And they're usually good projects. And a project will go through a significant process before we even agree to participate in it. It'll have to meet all the planning. It'll have to meet all of the conditions that are set on by a planning commission. It'll have to have, the developer will have to provide their financials to us. We'll have to review financials. We'll have to verify there's a gap, because these are public tax dollars that we're using, and the redevelopment agency is just as much as a steward of those tax dollars as you as a city council would be of any tax dollars you receive. We'll go through a public hearing process. We'll enter into development agreements. If a property owner has certain things that they want to have done, fine, we'll enter into a property purchase, a participation agreement with the property owner to make sure that whatever that property owner wants is going to be taken care of by that development. We're here to protect. We're not here to destroy. And the only time we get involved is if there is a deal made and something can happen. Then they come to us and say, will you participate with me in this new development? We then decide yes or no. Harmons became Harmons because of the redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency created a project area so that Harmons could become part of this community. That's why you have a Harmons today, is because of the RDA. And that's significant. We did not exclude Harmons because of the money they made. We excluded Harmons because economically it does not make sense to increase your base year value of that property by $20 million, because you're not going to build anything there that's going to give you that same $20 million. That's why Harmons was excluded. It didn't have anything to do with the revenue it made, because I think if Harmons was going to expand or was going to add on the building, they'd want to come to the RDA and say, can I have the tax increment to help with my expansion? But that's why we excluded them. It didn't have anything to do with the revenue.
Okay, thank you. You have another comment, please? Just give us your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Cato O'Toole. I'm Stacy O'Toole's daughter. I think one of the issues that we're not touching on is you guys know more about this than we do. We think you're selling us smoke. I'm a disabled person. I have EDS. I can't work. I have agoraphobia. I don't leave my house. My mother's the same way. We don't leave. We are not looking at you telling us, oh, it's not going to happen. We are looking at what is the percentage that the city and the state's agenda match up. What is that percentage? I want hard facts on the percentage that the city and the state match up. Because you're telling me right now that the city will not take my house. I understand that perfectly. I do, I get it. The city won't take my house. I totally understand your point. You're trying to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
What is the hard percentage that the state will match up with the city and say, okay, we're gonna take it? Because I just put in an entire remodel on my home. It started out a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Now it's a 4-bedroom, like 3-bathroom. I'm at a half bath right now, sorry, but 3-bathroom. I have painted the outside, redone the outside, redone everything in that home, the gutters, everything you could possibly. I just moved down a water heater. I have EDS, and I moved down a water heater because I'm trying to update my home to stay current with what you guys are doing in the city. I completely understand what you guys are trying to do. I'm also scared to leave my home. So what is the percentage that you're gonna take my home from me that I've lived in since what, 2001? 2002, I have lived in. I'm now 27 years old and I have a debilitating disease. So are you gonna guarantee me I can stay in my home and I'll never have to leave for the rest of my life because I plan on being buried there? Can you tell me that in 1,000%? That's what we're talking about. We are human beings. We don't want to be sold smoke. We don't want to be told a whole bunch of things that, oh, this could happen, but only if this happens and only if this happens. We don't care about that. We are small business owners, we are homeowners, and we are struggling. So we don't care about all of this economic stuff. I understand it's good for the city, but we are trying to stay current with the city. And just because we're small doesn't mean that we don't have a voice too. So I get you don't understand where we're coming from, but that's what it is. We think that you guys sell smoke.
What's her address?
Okay. Well, I appreciate your point. I guess maybe the answer to your question is this. Some people in elected office basically say that they demand that you trust us. And the fact of the matter is you have to earn trust. Trust is done by example. I could tell you right now as the mayor that simply says you have nothing to worry about. But I don't think you're going to believe that. I think what you have to do is you have to see it. You have to understand it. You have to be convinced of it. And it's only when we basically prove, we basically prove to you that you can trust us, that in fact you can feel some comfort to that. And I would like to basically say is that there's absolutely no guarantee ever that's ever going to happen, you'll be vacated your house. But you know what? I can never be honest and say that to you. You know that, okay? Nobody can ever say that. And our challenge right now is to simply say is that if we can as a body, try to help it so that it does not impact you. You keep your home, you keep your business. But we find other ways by which we can provide the support we need to be able to develop this city and pay for the demands the city has by other means. Maybe we can also say to you is, we're not going to raise your taxes. We're not going to put any more burden on you. I think, to be honest with you, this board and specifically this council owes it to its citizens to ask the hard question would be is that how can we basically give you what you want, the services you expect, and do it at the less cost and loss impact to you? That's what we're struggling with. Because right now, our concern would be is, and I'll be blunt with you, our concern would be is that we have to find ways by which we can generate the revenue to pay for all that. And I feel very hard, it's difficult for me to simply says, I'm going to do it on your back through your property tax. And I walk in here and says, we got to do a 25 or 50% increase in property tax. That's devastating. It's not just devastating to you, it's devastating to the 39,000 other people who live in this city. Because it's hard, that's difficult. So the choices become simple. Either we find ways to generate revenue to pay for the services, or we cut the services. And I'm not going to basically sacrifice personally that we cut public safety. We have to retain our police. We have to retain our firemen. You have to have a good sewer. You have to have good water. There are certain things that this community, you demand and expect from us. And we have to provide that.
I think the other thing to take into consideration, Mayor, is you do not live on a state road. So we're saying as a city, we're not going to come take your house. By virtue of you not living on a state road, the state's probably not going to come take your house as an expansion of a road. If you lived on 5600, I'd say you might have something to worry about.
But it's your probablys, not to be rude and interrupt you, I apologize, but it's
I don't
your
have a crystal
probablys
ball that will tell me what's going to happen.
Right.
I'm telling you that the fact is you don't live on a state road or close enough to a state road that when they widen it, that your house would be part of it. I don't see any reason other than the fact you want to sell out of your house and move. I don't see any reason why.
Which I don't. I can't.
I understand that. And that's what I'm saying. I don't see any reason why we would take your house or why the state would. You're not in an area where that behooves that to happen. And
Right.
so as far as I can see, you're safe. I mean, nobody can tell the future, but as
But
far
that
as I
comes-
can see,
That comes back down to, what are the hard percentages of that happening in a neighborhood? Do you have any other neighborhoods that it's happened in? And can you tell me the hard percentages of that?
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you what's happening today. And you don't have to go too far to see it. If you got onto Antelope Drive and took 2000 west in Davis County and drove up heading north on that road and enter on 3500, we're talking about Antelope Drive coming, you will see a significant widening project unfolding. That's a UDOT road. That road will go all the way to Midland. It's going to go right through the bottom of Roy on 3500, and it's going to turn up to the east, and it's going to go and connect with that Midland Drive. That is a 5-lane road, and that is scheduled to happen. There's no way that UDOT can make that happen without buying homes. I'm just telling you that right now. So I witnessed it in Davis County, and I will witness it, I'm sure before my life's over, it will happen in Roy on 3500. I'd like to tell you that basically we're 4 or 5 years out. I don't know the answer until I see the study. But I can promise you, if they widen 5600, UDOT does, they will take homes. It's just inevitable.
Right.
And so if you're not connected to that, you have nothing to worry because the UDOT or nobody else has any interest in your property. And as I heard from the testimony here, this CRA has no interest in your property if you don't want to participate. All I can say is we're doing everything we can to allow you as a president to basically stay in your home and do your home. But I will tell you, okay, does that mean that a developer walks in and gives you 3 times the worth of your home that you may decide to simply sell it? I can't answer that, but I will tell you this, that if somebody walked up to me and simply says they will give me 3 times the value of my home for my property so they can do the development, as a property owner, I'm going to listen. I may not agree, but I'm going to listen. So here's what I would ask of you.
A property owner without disabilities, you would definitely buy.
I recognize that disabilities, and I recognize that happens. But we're trying to basically help you understand is that you have property rights, and you have a voice in this discussion, and we want you to hear your voice. And whether this is approved or not approved, the key to this conversation is going to be is you are a property owner, and because the CRA may deal with your property, you have a voice. And if you basically say, I'm not playing, I don't want to play, I'm enjoying my home, I'm going to stay here, then you have a voice in that. And there's nothing this city's going to do to kick you out of your house.
All right, thank you,
But-
sir. I wasn't trying to create any disconnect. I
No.
just wanted for you guys to understand where we're coming
I
from.
understand.
That we are just normal people.
Technically, we don't have to approve this. And if we
Right.
don't approve it, we're back to where we were,
Right.
where we are.
That's right.
And let's just kind of take that property, I mean, right now, if we don't approve this, we're just basically where a property owner can come in and they can say, hey, I want to take that whole corner. And then we're in that situation now. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? You're now, a property owner is going to say, we want that whole corner. And then they might come to you and say, okay, we want that whole corner, here we're at, whether we approve this or not. And I think that's what we have to understand, that this is not set on the decision whether properties are going to come in or not come in, because if we don't approve it, we're still in the same situation, dealing with the property owner. The only thing that this gives us advantage of is to be able to have that little bit of tax increments to be able to help with either the businesses or property owners or something to be able to help facilitate something. But technically we don't, we can move on as a city without accepting this and going on, and we'll wait for businesses if they want to come in, and then we'll go from there and decide what we want to do and where we're at. It just, like he says, gives us a little bit more, but I don't know, we don't need it. We don't need to adopt it. We're basically where we're at with the city.
Okay. Hey, thank you for your comment.
Yeah, thank
Okay. Okay, anybody else like to share a thought? Please.
I have a question for Randy.
I'm so sorry, I don't want to capitalize all of the time, and I know it's getting late,
It's
but
okay.
a couple of additional comments. First of all, Councilman Saxon, I appreciate your comments. In the times I have been to city council, the number of times that discussions have been opened up to public comment twice in one, this is the first time I've ever seen that done. So I appreciate you making the request for additional public comment, so thank you.
You're welcome.
My last question would be, as you talk about, 1 in 25 times that you connect with potential businesses coming in and you would get 1 to come out. It raises question to me, it raises concern to say, what are we doing differently or perhaps negatively that are keeping businesses out of the community? Why did we lose Discount Tire? I also own property.
I can answer that. Discount Tire left, even though they were doing quite well here, they left because Clinton had a new Discount Tire and they felt like consolidating them would work. And the problem with the Discount Tire in Roy is it's only got 3 bays. What's really remarkable is that you've got an offer that's already been made on the Firestone building because it's got 5 bays. And so it's all about the ability to get cars in and out of. So that's why there was nothing the city could do to
Well, it didn't
say
have something to do with the property owner
Yeah.
didn't renew the lease. It wasn't just a Discount Tire decision.
No.
The property owner's back east, and they chose not to let Discount upgrade the building
Upgrade the building.
and chose not to renew the lease.
That-
Same thing with
yeah.
Firestone. The property owners of Firestone pulled the leases on 11 Firestones in Utah. Wasn't just Roy, it was multiple across the state.
So that was one where the property owner did not want to work with the tenant on Discount Tire property. So, I
Right.
mean, there's probably many different reasons why we lose, some businesses,
Yeah.
out of different properties and things like that, so.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that, and I know you do this day in and day out, and you're dealing with the businesses
Well, I
coming in.
don't, and in fairness, I'm really just a councilman.
But he does a
We
really good job
don't-
calling all the businesses.
I
We
get it.
just,
Yeah.
we don't have, as a city, an economic development director.
I
And
get
so
it.
Joe and I and the mayor work off of a committee. But yes, I cannot tell you the number of businesses I call. And really, it's cutting into my time to be able to listen to rock and roll music in the morning because I've got to turn it down every time somebody returns my call. But the bottom line is that we're going the right way. Our Councilman Paul pointed out our sales tax revenues are up. This was another vehicle to help us. And that's all it is. It wasn't a trick. It isn't a game. I don't play games. That's not who we are. We're a council, and we care about the public we serve. All of us do. And I was just going to ask Randy, and I'm hoping he can't throw his calculator at me, but if the O'Tooles didn't want to be included in this zone, is there a way that we could make it work? And I'm asking Randy.
Yeah,
We
you can
can,
take them out.
can't we adjust whatever we want it to be?
You have the right, your resolution,
Yeah.
you can amend the project area and take the property owners
Yeah, I was
out.
gonna
And
say
my
we can-
recommendation, if you're gonna do that, looking at the map of that project area, I would recommend that you take out the property owner to the north of them, which would be the Gregory Little property. Because there wouldn't be any reason to have both of those property in the project area if you were to remove the Stacy O'Toole. Now, the problem is simply this, and I'm just going to say that because you asked, is that if there was ever a time that they wanted
That whole
to be
corner.
back in the RDA, or they wanted the tax increment, sorry, they can't have it because they're not in the project area.
That's right.
Now, with that being said, if they plan to stay there for the rest of their lives and never sell and never do anything, then there's probably no harm taking them out. But you have every right to amend the project area to eliminate property if you feel that the property would not be needed for any future development or future opportunities. So if that makes the O'Tooles happy, you can, when you adopt the resolution, you can adopt the resolution and say that I'm adopting the resolution as an amended resolution and that the project area would be amended to eliminate the following parcels.
That's correct.
So the answer to the question is yes.
Okay.
But just.
Does
but
that minimize their opportunities?
Well,
It does, because it takes away possibly
It
tax.
does only to the-
possibilities.
It does only to the extent that if there was a development that wanted to happen, or let's say they get to the point where they want to sell their property. The one thing that we could do as a redevelopment agency, we could look at either buyers, investors, people who might want to work with us in the future, somebody that might have a 1031 money that would like to invest it in something for 2 or 3 years. We could find a potential buyer for them. But if they're out of the area, then we are not allowed under the statute to participate with any kind of TIF in that.
If they find themselves as the only house standing and surrounded by commercial and wanted to work with the developer to get out, if we remove them, they would not have any incentive based on this
We
project.
couldn't use the tax increment to help them in any way.
Right.
Now, with that being said, I guess you could come back at a later date and go through this same public hearing process to put them back in.
Correct.
If you wanted to, because you can in the future amend the project area, but to amend the project area, we go through the same process that we're going through right now. We have to send the property owners a letter, we have to have a public hearing, and then at the public
Right.
hearing, make the decision whether
Right.
to put them in.
Don't exclude me, that's causing me anxiety, don't exclude me.
okay,
You're causing me anxiety, don't exclude me.
all right.
You have other questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, I just had one other component, one other question as it relates to the decision that you're gonna have to make here. And that is, it seems like Roy is such a natural extension to Riverdale. The business could be flowing right up the hill, right into where we want the businesses to be.
Correct.
Are there other factors or compounders that are playing into this that are keeping businesses out of Roy? Are the tax rates greater? Are there extenuating circumstances beyond what we're discussing here and how we're trying to build business that we could be looking at to invite more business in? Because it should be natural. I look at it and I think, I don't know why business stops here as where it could just be naturally migrating right into Roy and Clearfield and some of those
Yeah.
other areas.
Well, that's an excellent question. Let me share with you a couple of pieces to add to that. The first thing, when I talked to my friend in Riverdale, they have people waiting to go into their vacant facilities. And that's Riverdale. We have to hunt for them, convince them. 1 out of 25. Why? If you walk into Ogden and you look at what's happening in the redevelopment down there, would it surprise you if they've got, I think, anywhere from 27 or 23 different RDA operations going on in Ogden? You start to look at what happened downtown, particularly where the megaplex is. That megaplex is there because of an RDA, and look what's happened around that facility. It's just incredible. I'm just watching all of this opportunity occur, and to be honest with you, I'm asking that same question. Why are we not part of this? Why is it just seems when it gets to the board of Roy that basically we have not been afforded that same opportunity? But I can share with you this. We are looking at all sides of this. We have a business advisory board looking at it. We have a contractor looking at our general plan. We have a contractor looking at form-based codes. We have a contractor helping us on CRAs. we got to look at this thing from all sides, because if Roy City is going to find itself moving in terms of become self-efficient in economical development, then something has to change to allow that to happen, because other cities are. They're doing it, and they're very successful. If you look at what's happening in Farmington, you can't go up down the Wasatch Front and not recognize that there are significant changes occurring. And to be honest with you, I think we're 10 years, 15 years behind it. I don't know what the original philosophy was 15, 20 years ago when we started to see real evolution. But we're running behind, and we got to catch up. And we got to do that, and we can't catch up and keep doing this on the backs of the taxpayers. We have to find a solution to bring good jobs, good opportunities into Roy in order for Roy to be self-sustaining. And I'd like to be like Riverdale is, where the 8,000 residents there are not carrying a load of that cost to sustain them. The biggest benefit they're gaining is from the sales tax that they're generating in that city. So we have some opportunities. We think this is one tool that we'd like to get out there for consideration. And again, most importantly, the tool is something the property owner controls. Property owner, not Roy City. We're just going to offer a tool for them to use it. Any further comments before we go out of public hearing?
Just to add to that, I don't know, can you hear me with this mic? Is this work? I think the only thing I wanted to add to that is the simple fact that retail is changing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we have a lot to do it. I'd like to ask everybody, and how many shop online for their products now instead of go to a store? That has a significant impact on how retail is changing. The other thing is we've struggled with this for many times. As you know, we've done a retail leakage study to see what we could go out and find. That retail leakage limited us to what we could do because those retailers are right here in this market.
That's right.
And so we do have a lot of stuff going against us, but we do have opportunity to change because there's still product that will work if we're willing to change and do different things.
That's right. No, you're absolutely correct.
I wish we were on Riverdale Road.
Well,
we do have a chunk of it.
And I shopped there, and the leakage study in 2014 was clear. A significant amount of money that Roy residents have shop outside of Roy. In a large part because we can't provide that service. We can't provide those products.
And we can't get them because they're already in that Riverdale market.
And they go to Riverdale,
or Clinton.
They go to Layton, and they go to Clinton. And that's exactly what the data tells us. It's pretty interesting. Please.
To follow up on what you just said, everybody knows that the best time to plant a tree is 15 years ago.
Yes, that's great.
And yeah, we are where we are as a result of decisions that the city council made 15, 20, I've moved here 40 years ago, and I've watched this a little bit.
Yes, sir.
If I've got two criticisms of this program. Number one, when you send information out to citizens and describe the boundaries you're talking about, don't talk in meets and bounds, talk in street names or something so everybody can understand what's going on.
Good point.
Second criticism is you're not being aggressive enough. We need to go after this if we're going to go after it. Brian's been working on this a long time, I know, but we ought to be looking at development down 5,600. If the state's going to widen that road, and we're pretty sure they are.
We got to wait and find out what property they're going to buy to see what's left over.
Let's see what's left over. Yeah, I agree, but let's plan on this. That property from 1900 to 2200 is 60 and 70 years old. You know, that needs to come out and something else go in there. I know I own some of it.
Well, we're working at it about as hard and fast as we can right now.
Well,
without having more full-time employees, which if we could generate more revenue, we could hire an economic development director. It's a catch-22.
Maybe you can find some assistance from people who are willing to volunteer.
There you go.
We have that. We have a business advisory board.
The church runs on volunteers.
I understand that.
You know, maybe we can do some different things. But let's maybe think much bigger. Not that we have to develop CRAs or RMDs or whatever. But let's go after this issue and figure out what we're gonna do and sit some people down and say, what are we gonna do to compete with these guys? I maybe want to annex part of Riverdale that comes right out of Hillfield, you know, they got this big field in there. You know, maybe we can do something. Riverdale have a heart attack, but
Yeah. they
but
would.
I just say, let's think bigger on this. What you're looking at is good. Let's just expand our horizons.
Well, thank you for your comments. Thank you. Does anybody else like to share a thought?
Make a
Okay,
motion, we
seeing
go out of
none,
public comment.
Do I have a motion then to go out of public hearing?
Public hearing.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. Council, board members, do you have any comments, thoughts? Okay, let's begin, okay? I know it's hard, but we have to work through this. You have a comment?
No, are we going to kind of work through it? And
I
maybe
am.
we'll
So what I'm going to
discuss
do is I'm going to ask you then, board members, I'd like you to then consider, do I have approval then to approve Resolution 19.5, which is approving and adopting the 1900 Southwest Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan?
So
Can I
moved.
make a comment?
So, yeah.
Oh, just really quickly.
Please.
Go ahead.
Because I serve on the board of a taxing entity, not because I'm not interested, not because I'm not concerned as a citizen, but I'm going to recuse myself from any vote on this.
Okay.
So I want my public to understand why.
Okay. From a legal perspective, we okay with that?
Certainly.
Okay, and I appreciate you making that announcement, because it's important that not only the record shows that, but it's also important that the individuals here understand that. So we're going to focus then on the three other board members.
Okay, so sorry.
Go ahead.
So if we do want to make adjustments to the boundaries, is it best to do it now or after, and then we kind of make adjustments then?
I would recommend if you want to make adjustments, you make it now. And I think we recommended an adjustment in the southwest area, but I understand from the comment that was made that they probably would prefer to stay in. So, but if you want to make adjustments, now would be the time to make the adjustments.
Okay, and this is our, because you said there's 12 steps that have to go along with this, or whatever
Process
steps.
7 and 8.
Yeah, and so we're process 7 and 8. So this is not really final until all of the pieces fall in place.
Correct. What happens is you're creating
'Cause I
the
think
project
that's-
area by resolution and ordinance. So the project area is in place. The other steps involve us going through the, with the taxing entities, going through the approval of the budgets, going through and getting the approval of, and then sending everything out to taxing entities and things like that. But this step, if you adopt this resolution, you have created the project area. So the project area is in place. But we don't have any approval to collect any increment. We don't have any approval to do any
So
projects.
if none of that gets approved, then this basically dies.
Yeah, if we don't get the taxing entities to participate with us and nobody wants to, then we'll come back and dissolve the project areas.
Okay.
But if there were to be any adjustments, I would recommend that we make those adjustments tonight. And those could be easily done. It'd be very simple, like we suggested, if you wanted to take out those two property owners, you can make a motion to approve the resolution approving amended project area, which would be excluding, and I've got the properties here, and we just list those, and then we'll go back and have the engineer redo the boundaries and give us a new legal description. And the reason I suggest do that now, because that will take time to get that done, and we need to, as one of our steps, publish a notice in the paper that this project area has been adopted, and we'd want to get that new legal description and that new map, because that has to be included in that. And we have to send letters to all of our taxing entities, letting them know that we've done that. So that would
Okay.
be my recommendation. But if the O'Toole's don't want to be removed, then I don't know if we have any boundaries adjustments that we would suggest to you.
She wants to stay in.
Okay.
I've already made the motion to approve Resolution 19-5.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now this is a roll call vote, so Morgan, if you'll walk us through this.
Board Member Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Saxton,
Aye.
Board Member Yeoman,
Aye.
Okay?
motion
Aye.
carries.
Okay, and you recuse yourself, okay? Okay, this is Resolution 19-6, approving and adopting the 1900 Southwest Community Reinvestment Project Plan Budget. Do I
I'll
have a
make
motion to approve?
approve that.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Board Member Saxton,
Aye.
Board Member Yeoman,
Aye.
Board Member Paul,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, now we have Resolution 19-7, approving and adopting the 1900 Southeast Community Reinvestment Project Area. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Board Member Yeoman,
Aye.
Board Member Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Saxton,
Aye.
motion
Okay.
carries.
And last, in terms of this effort, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 19-8, which is adopting then the 1900 Southeast Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan Budget?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Board Member Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Saxton,
Aye.
Board Member Yeoman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion then to adjourn the Royce City RDA Board meeting?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You can stay
Okay.
here all night.
Now, I'd like to go back, and I'd like to go back
I know.
into a motion to reconvene the Royce City Council.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, just to finish this discussion up, we are now in a Royce City Council meeting, council members. I have two issues. Randy, do you want to just briefly discuss these in terms of these ordinances?
I think that would be appropriate to discuss the ordinance with you, because in the ordinances, you are making some findings. And basically, well, you're not making findings, but you are doing this to say that you as a city now have concurred with the recommendation of the redevelopment agency based upon the public hearing that the RDA has held and the comments that have been received at the public hearing. You as a city are now concurring that this could become the official project area plan for those two areas. And we do say that the ordinance, you will adopt and designate the project area as approved by the agency board. You authorize us to go ahead and move forward to publish or cause to be published the notices required by the act that this is the official plan and when it will become effective. And it will become effective 30 days after that notice is published. And that we have the right as the redevelopment agency to carry out the plan, and also that this ordinance would take effect immediately. So that's what you're doing with this ordinance.
Okay.
And you have one for each project area.
Correct. Okay, thank you for the insight. Council, any comments, questions before we begin? Okay, seeing none, then, council, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 1917, adopting the official plan for the 1900 Southeast Community Reinvestment Project Area, and to approve then, be approved by the Redevelopment Agency of Roy?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Thank you. And last, council, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 19-18, adopting the official plan for the 1900 100 Southwest Community Reinvestment Project Area as approved by the Redevelopment Agency of Roy.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Morgan? You're okay?
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Yeoman,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
motion carries.
you.
Just for the record, I just want to make sure that you understand that I would abstain on those votes as well.
Right, it's still dealing with the same
Yeah.
entity. so-
Exactly.
Yeah.
So-
Council, we appreciate input. Randy, appreciate the advice and in providing direction on this. Council, do I have a motion then to adjourn the Roy City Council?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jan. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Thank you. A long day.
One
We
one
got
thing I
some-
just want to state is on December 3rd, we have another public hearing scheduled for the adoption of the DR&G project area. So I just want to give you a heads up. Now, all I ask is we can send those documents out like we did before prior to it, or would you just prefer to have those included in the packet? It's kind of
No,
up to you.
send that out prior.
Send them out prior,
Okay,
please.
then
That gave us time to look.
we'll try to send those out to you next Monday or Tuesday for you to look at those documents then. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Great comment. Hey, thank you, Council.